Next is, need approval for the minutes of January 11th, 2024.
So moved.
Second?
Any corrections to the minutes? If there are none, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Next is report recommendations, special uses for the truck dealership, rental and servicing facility, zoning variation, sign code variation, and site plan review for the property at 101 Mitchell Drive. Director Springer, you want to take it away and have some introductions?
Thank you, Chairman. I would be happy to. So this project, the petitioner is CIT Trucks, and they are proposing a new Kenilworth truck dealership at 101 Middle Drive. They are a company that focuses on heavy and medium-duty retail truck sales, parts, and service. So if this project is approved tonight, they would be one of our top sales producers in the city, because they will be bringing their parts sales over from Bensonville along with some of those employees, and they will also be selling Kenworth trucks at this location. This seems awful loud. So like I said, one of our top sales tax producers. So this is the property. It's located at the northwest corner of Wooddale Road and Middle Boulevard. The property itself is zoned I-1 industrial, and the northern portion of the site is in the Thorndale, the TIO overlay, which is the Thorndale Interchange Overlay District. This is a view of the building itself from Middle Drive, and this is a view from Wooddale Road. And these are little details about the project. This is the site plan. They are proposing enhanced perimeter landscaping. They will have 163 parking spaces, 3 drive-in overhead doors proposed on the west side of the building, 16 loading docks that currently exist on the south side of the building, 122 passenger vehicle parking spaces on the site, and 41 tractor-trailer parking spaces. Those are these longer ones that you can see interspersed throughout the site. They are proposing a new access drive over on AEC Drive, and they're doing that to improve the truck maneuverability around the site. The 2 existing drives on Middle Drive will also remain. They are proposing a new fully screened masonry trash enclosure, and they are going to extend the public sidewalk along Wooddale Road. The sidewalk does go further south continuously from this location. There is a small gap, and then it continues again going northward. So this gives us an opportunity to have that public sidewalk installed. So TIF request. Originally, when this company approached the city, there was no TIF request. However, as we were going through the site plan review process, the business was interested in eliminating some of the landscape islands that were in the parking lot. Again, they're going to be having tractor trailers maneuver throughout the site, and it just increased maneuverability. Well, when that happened, and they're adding a little bit of pavement on the perimeter of the site, they ended up increasing the impervious surface area, and with that addition, it triggered stormwater detention on site. Now, that wasn't initially planned. It is a costly item. The other thing was the sidewalk that was being proposed. As they worked with their engineers, it was determined that an open swale ditch that runs north and south along Wooddale Road, that's going to need to be regraded in order to install the sidewalk. So these were extraordinary costs that they hadn't anticipated as they went through the process. Of course, CIT Trucks is going to be a tenant. They are not the building owner, and the building owner isn't willing to make those improvements. So there will be a TIF request forthcoming for this project. The cost is not significant, about $293,000. And the TIF request will be considered at future meetings. This shows you where the surface detention basin is proposed, this small parcel just north of the building, also under the same ownership as the rest of the property. And the purple shows you the sidewalk that is going to be installed. Our city engineers have reviewed their preliminary engineering and are comfortable with what's being proposed, and they will be required to comply with all engineering codes and regulations at the time of building permit. So the requests here this evening for you are special use for motor vehicle sales, new and used, motor vehicle repair facility for commercial motor vehicles, motor vehicle rental. All of those use categories require special uses. The other uses in the building, warehouse and office, do not require special use. Those are permitted uses. They are seeking 2 zoning variation requests to reduce the parking requirement from 211 to 163 vehicle spaces. You may have read in the memo that they are only going to be occupying the first floor of the office. There are 2 floors of office space. The prior tenant did use all of that. They don't need, the proposed tenant doesn't need all of that office space. They also operate on 3 shifts. And so 163 parking spaces is more than enough to accommodate even shift change. Now, if in the future another tenant goes into the building and wants the additional parking spaces back, it's very simple to just restripe the lot because the pavement is actually being increased. So this is a situation that works for this petitioner and won't hinder any type of parking for future tenants that need it. Regarding the sign code variation request, there is a request to increase the sign area. The maximum allowed per code is 100 square feet. They are proposing 9 feet over, but that's because Kenworth has a standard sign size that they use, and it was a minimal request. The CDC held a public hearing on January 15th, and they did vote unanimously to recommend approval of the project. The staff is also recommending approval. Eric Miner from CIT is here this evening and is willing to tell you just a little bit about the company. If you are interested in hearing that, he would be happy to do that, and I'm also available to answer any questions.
Yes, go ahead. Alderman, go ahead.
Just one question. The motor vehicle rental, is that because of leasing the trucks?
Yes, they do have some. That is not, I don't think, a very large portion of their business, but they do allow that, and I can let Eric speak to that when he is up.
I was just because I thought it was a sales, but it sounds like probably for leasing.
Go ahead, Director.
Oh.
If they want to.
Yeah, would you like to get up and
Sure.
talk a little bit about CIT?
Sure.
Hold on one second.
I'm Eric Miner. I'm the CEO and have owned the company since 1992. We did this for the CDC. It's very quick. I think there's 4 slides in there that we don't want to bore you with a lot of unnecessary detail, but it tells a little more about what we do. And the reason that I like to try to do a little of this is because people, when they hear our name, CIT Trucks, they a lot of times just assume we're a trucking company, a hauling company, freight company type. We're actually just like a car dealer, except for trucks. So we're a retail business, and we sell parts, we repair trucks, and then we sell trucks. On your question on the leasing, we have a leasing and a finance division. So there's times that customers will want to lease rather than purchase. It's kind of more of a finance lease arrangement really than anything else. So I would say 85–90% is going to be sales, truck sales versus lease. We started in Normal, Illinois back in 1975. We are a Kenworth dealer, franchised with Kenworth here in the Chicago area. We also are franchised with Volvo and Mack and Isuzu Autocar, but those are spread out around 19 other locations throughout Illinois and Missouri and Indiana. We do have a Mack presence in Chicago up on the northwest side, but other than that, our entire Chicago operation is franchised with only Kenworth. That was just a quick slide on awards and that type of thing. We have been fortunate to be successful. We've got a lot of really good people. We've got 870 employees now. I'll have you go on to the next one there. But so 49 years in business, 33 years under the current ownership. I do have 2 stockholders in the business with me, and they are day-to-day operators. The president of the company and the vice president of sales also own stock in the company. We have 19 separate business operations, franchise with that group, as I told you, and then we're at $738 million in annual sales this past year, $246 million in assets. We rank first among all North American Kenworth dealers in customer service. 3 years in a row we've gotten that award. Second in financial operations, and then 5th in total new truck sales volume in North America. That is a quick overview of where we're at now. Our territories extend kind of, if you drew a line right across the halfway mark of Missouri, we have the southern half of Missouri. We have the northwestern part of Indiana. We have 5 expansion projects going right now. So our history is kind of different in a way that we tend to expand when things are not considered great for expansion, but to us it kind of makes sense. So we've got a lot going right now. We have an existing operation that Stacy referred to in Bensenville, just 2 miles up the road. That we've been there since '04, and it is a parts only operation, but it's an extremely large parts operation. We've been hunting for a location to try to service tractors and sell tractors more in this center metro area, and so that's what makes Wooddale so attractive to us.
Okay,
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I think you answered part of that question. Why Wooddale, right? You have a dealer 2 miles away. You hinted towards service.
Right.
Can you talk a little bit more about what that service looks like and visibility to the main road?
Sure. So when we bought Chicago, it was in 2004, and the prior dealer had a very, very small parts only, retail parts division in Bensenville. So we took that over, and then it grew rapidly. That is the largest parts only in terms of volume in North America for Kenworth. So this area that we're in is extremely busy for trucking. Yeah. And so we have a great volume there. The reason we're moving from that location is twofold. One is our lease runs out in April, and they have given us a year extension if we need it, but they're going to tear that down. That's owned by Prologis, and they're going to tear that building and that entire block down and replace it with big box. So,
Okay, follow up.
So just looking at your business hours, right? Is it? Am I reading that right? Is that midnight, 12 midnight?
12 to midnight. Yeah, 7 a.m. in the morning till midnight.
Okay. Can you speak a little bit? Sorry.
Go ahead.
Can you speak a little bit more about the actual I'm worried about disruption, right? What I know Wooddale Road to be, what we envisioned it. This, in my humble opinion, I don't know if it aligns, but I'm also more terrified of the noise if there's service work happening in bays at 11 o'clock at night, because we'll get those calls.
Yeah.
And the yelling and screaming. So could you talk a little bit about the service, like what happens at 10 o'clock that we should anticipate?
Well, let me see if I can answer it properly, if I understand your question right. So we'll have probably about 40 operating bays inside that building for service. And so maybe try to explain what we do. It would be very similar to a car dealer again, except for heavy equipment with the semis. So you might have a tractor that'll come in and it'll have a example I gave last meeting was you might have somebody with a fan belt and they're not from the area and they're under load and they come in, they have to have that fixed, and we literally go out on the lot and fix that in 10 minutes for them. you might have something come in that'll be fixed in 4 hours. About 60% of our work is over 4-hour repair, 40% is 4 hours or under. So it's a fairly quick turn. The work that is taking longer than 4 hours is going to take a while, 2 days to a week. If you have an overhaul, again, depending on parts and everything, that could stretch out to 10 working days, that type of thing. The type of noise that you would have would probably be, if we're working with air wrenches and those types of things. I'm not sure, I hate to not be able to answer your question right, but I'm not sure we would hear that outside the building. Now in the building you would hear it. We're working off of compressors and so forth. But I don't think that you'll get complaints about noise out of the dealership. How close is there residential close by here?
No.
Alderman Sosmowski, go ahead.
Yeah, there's no residential anywhere near you.
What you would have is, if there was residential, what you might have is a semi being started out on the lot. Somebody's going to come in now and pick it up, and they start the vehicle to leave, and so you're going to obviously hear that. But we were hoping there wasn't any residential close by.
No.
There's a hotel that's not that close from what I'm understanding. I was envisioning it closer, but I'm just trying to get an understanding of
Sure.
how much noise. I mean, it doesn't sound like it's.
Yeah,
not-
I don't want to undershoot it, but I don't think it's not like we're a lot of heavy noise on the lot. It's mostly inside.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Alderman Jacob.
I have one question, and you probably answered it, but our director had mentioned like trailers as well. I mean, you're only selling the actual cabs, correct? You're not selling trailers, are you?
Correct. We only sell the tractors. The trailers come into play if somebody were to come in under load in an emergency repair.
Okay, that's why I said I think you answered the question. Like
Yeah.
if somebody had a problem, they needed a fan belt change.
Yeah. Most everything will bobtail in. If it's local, which is the preponderance of the work, they'll bobtail it in. They'll have an appointment, and they'll come in, and we'll get on it pretty much within an hour or two of them dropping it off.
Okay.
Alderman Sosmowski.
Yeah, just not to help you out, but I own a trucking company, so most of the time those doors are always closed because of debris outside and dirt, and if my truck's wide open on the overhead, I don't want dust and debris flying in, so those doors it's air conditioned inside for the mechanics and everything else, so it's pretty clean.
Yeah, it's fully ventilated and air makeup systems and those types of things.
Mayor, did you have a question?
Yeah. To be honest with you, last week I was driving home and I was following one of your trucks, CIT. So you guys, I take it, go do road service or something? Or was it just a guy delivering parts?
Probably delivering parts.
It was
Yeah.
a small truck. I was-
Yeah, a van, more or less
Yeah,
like a
yeah.
van. We'll have about 7 or 8 parts vans that will run out of this location.
Gotcha.
And we deliver parts
That's what
all
I
day
figured.
long, yeah.
Once this passes, how long is it's going to take to start up the operation?
I'm sorry.
Once this passes, how long is it? When are you going to start the operations at that location?
We'll start working on the location right away, but we've got lot work to do. We'll have landscaping and some of the things that we need to do with the city to make sure everything gets up to code. But we'll start all that as soon as we can. And then we probably will start actual truck and service sales probably midsummer, July. We'll bring the parts as quick as we can because that's an ongoing business. There's about 45 employees today at Bensonville, so we'll start bringing them over and start stocking the warehouse and getting the parts transferred and that type of thing.
Okay, any more questions? Alderman Woods.
Mr. Messina.
Okay. Mr.
Was there
Messina?
a motion?
I'm going to make the motion, but
You wanna make it? I was
follow
gonna
the
make-
questions.
I was gonna make a motion, but we can wait. Go ahead.
Alderman Woods?
Yeah, a couple staff questions.
don't want you to sit there and feel like, you know.
No, I'm fine, really.
On the sidewalk piece.
Yes.
So is that a zoning code, building code? Is that a city requirement to put the sidewalk in?
Yes, so in the UDO, there's an expectation for the sidewalk to go in. I don't have the code section in my head, though.
No, I just wanted to know if it should have been a known entity. It's not a unknown, because if you're looking at it, it's certainly attainable. And then the stormwater piece is because we're exceeding the 10,000 square feet.
Exactly.
And so that's a cost driver for them that they didn't anticipate. Again, I can code, but, and is there a way to reduce that? Like if, where they have just parking for their vans or their cars, if they did that with permeable pavers?
We talked about all sorts of options, about putting stormwater underground, which is even more expensive. We talked about pavers. They evaluated reducing the pavement to try to get under the 10,000, but you know, and their engineer is here this evening, I could speak to that, but basically after evaluating all those options, the surface stormwater was the most feasible and least expensive.
So on the same subject, so how far over the 10,000? How many feet would we have to eliminate?
That I would need the engineer to answer.
Yeah.
Or,
We don't want him to feel left out.
Yeah.
Could you call up one of those slides?
Sure.
I don't remember my name's Bill Loftus. I'm a principal of Spaceco. We're working on the civil engineering and surveying for the proposed project. If memory serves me, there's the existing condition map. Let's see if there's, I don't think we were actually close to the 10,000. I think we exceeded it pretty significantly, to be honest, but I don't remember the exact number. 28,000? 28,000 square feet, so we're pretty, almost 3x what it requires.
Yeah, then my idea is really, that doesn't even get us close. Next, for staff, so obviously heavy truck use on Wooddale Road, heavy truck presence, and assuming that they'll have, I won't assume, how many units will you have available on the lot? How many cabs would you have? Would you have 60, 70?
Sitting.
Yeah.
We'll have inventory, so we'll have new and used truck inventory, and that's probably going to be roughly about 16 combined at any one time. And then I'm not trying to dodge your question. It's a tough one to answer because we'll have about 40, like I say, 40 slots inside. I would think that we would have outside at any one time another 20. That's where I think we'd probably land. Now, I mentioned to the other committee, if it's like we had here a week or two ago where we were down 0 and huge wind chills and so forth, then we're going to have some gelling and some problems. So then we'll have, we could have in a real bad weather situation, we could have double that on the lot, 40. We did have a traffic statement that we gave the CDC that gave a better idea of the comings and the goings. And so I don't want to over explain your question, but we'll probably have the bulk of the traffic that comes into our dealerships is actually pickup vans and personal cars because they'll come to get parts. Once they bring their truck in, they'll leave, or they'll stay in our driver's lounge if it's a day repair or something like that. But usually if they're local people, they'll come with the driver, they'll drop the truck and they'll leave. And there's actually less of that coming and going than if we were a freight company there. It's even though we have 40 slots, like I said, it takes a while. 60% of that's going to take a couple days. So there's not quite as much coming and going as you think, but there'll be some traffic out there. Yeah, that's.
I was just trying to figure out what the lot visually looks like when driving by. right? If you tell me car dealership, I know that there's
Yeah.
100 cars sitting on the lot. If you tell me truck dealership, I'm assuming that, I assume the number greater than 16, but,
Well, this is where the inventory will be, and so that'll be new and used trucks, that'll be, nice new equipment. The service tractors will be mostly back through here. That's where the trucks waiting to get repaired will be. Now, you'll occasionally have an old truck or something like that that's in there that's got to get fixed, but,
so where you say the new trucks are, those are obviously deeper or longer spaces, so that those have trailers attached?
no, that's, this here, we will actually look more like this when we're done. Those are just drawn to show that they were truck bays, and at first we had these as employee bays, but those are actually gonna realistically have service tractors parked there waiting to get in. Yeah.
Greater than a car, but less than a full?
35 feet, yeah, they're about 35 feet is what you'll have with an average cab. If it's got a sleeper on it, it's sometimes a little longer.
And I'm assuming that the positioning of all that is to get the greatest bang for your buck visually, that everybody can see you driving by and see the trucks, which brings me to my next staff question.
Okay.
So obviously we've had multiple conversations on Wooddale Road with trucks, with different property owners and businesses. That's always been an issue. How do I explain the difference of approving this? I think Alderman Messina was touching on it. This was never really part of our vision. I don't want to beat it up, but it's certainly a diversion from what we were shooting for. So how do we explain that?
So
Go ahead.
I'm sorry.
Sure.
This area here is going to be all passenger vehicles for the office, or people coming in to pick up parts in there. Like Mr. Minor mentioned, this is going to be all new cabs here. Now, traffic-wise, they were not required to submit a traffic study, but we did ask for one. And what they submitted was something that actually was based on another location that they have, and they transposed those actual numbers to this size square footage and this location, and it turns out the traffic that's going to be generated from this use is less than the prior use. It's also less than a warehousing or manufacturing. It's actually not going to be significant because they're not a trucking type business like was mentioned. So for screening wise, they are adding some landscaping in this area. Obviously, they don't want to add too much because this is where the car inventory will be, but it's not going to be jam-packed with vehicles for sale. The front yard being along Wooddale Road, there is no, this is an existing situation, so there's no variation for parking in front of the building. And I think that's what you were looking for. Did that answer all your questions?
No, but thank you
Okay.
for that information. Again, the big thing is the trucks are going to be visual, and for all the right reasons for their business. I get that. So the impact that has is you're driving by, you see all those trucks. I'm not saying it's good or bad. I'm just saying that under prior scenarios, that wasn't a good thing. So how do I explain that I'm okay with this?
I think Alderman Woods is referring to, is it 850 Wooddale Road?
895?
895 Wooddale Road, which is a truck parking lot with multiple cabs, and this would be a business that sells, or trailers, I should say, multiple trailers. This would be a business that has cabs, which obviously are aesthetically different than 80 tractor trailers parked. Additionally, that's a parking lot where it's not really a valid business for us and makes no revenue. It does nothing for the city, whereas this is a well-known business, a sales tax producing business, and in the middle of an industrial park that has nothing but trucks. And I would add that the previous business, if you went out there earlier this summer and looked at the previous business, Prologis, you could tell residents that it is probably a night and day improvement aesthetically from its previous use.
And again, I'm not saying that it won't look nice. I'm sure they're gonna do a nice job. They have a great business going. Again, it's the trucks. And that was never our vision. I know our vision has to change. And if we had given the other company an option I won't ask that question.
Any other questions? Any other questions? If there are none, I'll make the motion to recommend the special uses for the truck dealership, rental, and servicing facility, zoning variation, sign code variation, and site plan review for the property at 10101 Mitchell Drive. That is my motion.
Second.
Alderman Messina, go ahead.
Do we not have to vote? Do we not have to also vote on the request for the TIF money?
That'll come later.
That's coming back, okay.
Yep. Alderman Jacob, go ahead.
One question I have, and this is maybe the owner or maybe Stacy can answer. So we're going to be getting sales tax revenue from here, and it's going to be from selling a ton of parts and these cabs. I have no idea what a cab goes for. I'm not in the trucking industry. Are these like $200,000, and of that, how much tax would the city get out of, say, $200,000 cab?
Can someone answer that? That was one of my questions, but I did. Go ahead.
Brad?
Feel free to step up, Brad.
I want to take it away.
You're looking lonely back there.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead.
Yeah, standard sales tax applies even for this type of use or this type of vehicle, and currently it's just 1%, so it'd be the standard 1%. There is no non-home rule sales tax on the sale of any vehicle, be it a rig, a used car, a new car, anything like that, so it'd be the 1%. So if it is a $200,000 vehicle, we would get the 1%. If it's $100,000, it's 1%. So whatever and even on the parts, same deal, the parts, non-home rule could be in play on the parts side of things. Service, as you know, services are not taxed in Illinois, but any parts used in repairs would be just like a regular vehicle mechanic.
Alderman Woods?
That was the
Yep.
pre-answered. That was going to be my question.
Right.
Part.
Alderman Messina?
I just had another question on something I'd read regarding flow. Like, so we have a junior high across the street. Let me start with this. It may not be an issue if I'm hearing that the traffic volumes are less with this business than prior. My one concern I had initially coming into the meeting was their peak hours are 7:45 to 8:45 and 3:30 to 4:30, right? Do we anticipate any issues with in and out going, kids being dropped off at the junior high? And
So the peak hour is what the traffic, statement or traffic study that they provided reviews. And the peak hour in the evening would not coincide with the school. So it's when office workers are leaving. And so there would be no, conflict there. Related to the morning, the estimate is about one car every minute to minute and a half will come into the site, or leave the site during the morning peak hour.
so we're talking cars. So
Yeah,
we're not
or
talking, I
vehicles.
thought these were all trucks,
Vehicles.
the numbers that were in the packet.
The vast majority of the trips is attributable to the staff or the people that are going to be on the site.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so if there's no more questions, do we have any more questions? Alderman Woods, go
Yeah,
ahead.
one more. Since we're
Okay.
running down the numbers. They thought they were out the door already. How many we'll call them units, trucks, do you think that you work on in a year? Do you have a number?
You mean our company?
Well, for this.
For its average
For this, 'cause
location?
We're talking, there's 40 inside, there could be 40 outside, you got, like if you go to a car dealership, a mechanic's usually got 2 bays, right? They work on one car, they wait for the part, they move to the second car, I'm assuming you have a similar process with the truck, so I'm just trying to get a number, because we throw all these numbers out here, 1 a minute, well, that's an average, so then is that 15 a minute for 20 minutes in the morning? That's where I'm trying to go to, so. If you're
And
running 100 trucks through there for the year, 200 trucks, 1,000.
I'm
How many repairs?
gonna apologize, but I don't have that. We track repair orders.
So how many repair orders?
So, and we do that by store, but I've gotten a little foggy on it, so I'm sorry. But I'm gonna say that we typically, we look on, let's try to approach it from this way, something that I do have fresh in my mind. The work in process, what we call work in process, the length of time that a tractor is there from the time the repair order gets open to when it's billed and leaves. We try to be at about 4.5 days, and the company will run, we're never as good as we want to be, but some of the times we're at 4.2, some of the times we're at 5.5, so it runs in that range. Whoops, sorry. So if you looked at that, we also figure a little better turn than you had there. Rather than 2 to 1, we figure about 1.3 to 1. And so if you figure 40, we figured we'd have about 32 tractors inside being worked on at any one time, and then those tractors on average will be in there for about 5 days. So as we start looking at that, then we can kind of figure out roughly how many would be going through there. But I guess if you looked and said, hey, that would be what, if we had 20 working days, then you might be looking at close to that 100 and 110 range to have through there in a month. And that'll probably hold, because that's, we run everything on averages, and I do know those pretty well. I wish I could tell you how many repair orders they keep that, but I don't have that with me.
That's a close enough number.
Yep.
And then, so following up to that, so then I would say, so if you generate 100 a month, then I would say there's accessory or ancillary trips from a car. Somebody's got to drop the truck off, somebody's got to leave, somebody's got to come back. So
Correct.
each one of those 100 generates 2 accessory trips,
Yeah.
if you will, possibly 3 if they call in, because you called them up and said, we thought the repair was 10 grand, now it's 110 grand. They come down and go, whoa, wait, what is it, right? Come on, it's got to be the same as cars. And so that average could jump up, so 100, 200, yeah.
It's over.
It gets me closer to understanding what the traffic is.
Yeah.
Because we kind of throw around these light numbers of just 1 car a minute and all that. We know that that's not what it is when we really dice it up and look at it by the hour. Especially with the school across the street, so.
It's two shifts as well. It's spread over 2 shifts. But it's kind of surprising when they do the truck studies, we were at about 9% of the total traffic was tractors coming and going. It's kind of hard to imagine that, but that's really about what it ends up at. Lots more car and pickup.
Right, and that was the point I was getting to, so that the truck traffic is really less than the traffic generated via trucks with the prior use.
Right.
But the autos are gonna accelerate. So, all right, yeah, that answers the question. Thank you.
So we have a motion and a second. Can we have a roll call, please?
Alderman Artwoods,
No.
Alderman Currielli,
Yes.
Alderman Messina,
Yes.
Alderman Jacob,
Yes.
Alderman Sismarski,
Yes.
Alderman Ames,
Yes.
Alderman Artie Woods,
Yes.
Alderman Catalano.
Yes, and that passes. Welcome to Wooddale.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay, next items to consider at future meetings. We have building code amendments coming up February 8th. And then Cyrus 1 phase of the special use of the PTUD plat coming in February 8th. And also we have Cyrus Phase 2 annexation rezoning plat March the 14th. Is there any other items to consider at future meetings? If there are none, all in favor, to adjourn, all in favor? Aye. Motion carries, we're adjourned, thank you.
I'd like to call to order the Finance and Administration Committee. If the minute taker could please note the same number. Well, actually, I think we had members added. Do we need to?
No, she may.
Okay.
I'm sure she knows that.
Okay, want to make sure. I need a motion to approve the minutes from the December 14th, 2023 Finance and Administration Committee.
Is there a second?
No, I need a motion. I didn't vote.
Yeah, I'll make that motion.
Second. Were there any questions, comments, corrections from the minute? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? And that passes. Under report and recommendation, we have a presentation for the fiscal year 2025 CIP. Director Wilson.
This thing is really touchy. Thank you, Madam Chairman. I do have a couple of extra copies if anybody needs one. I do have one here, a couple. All right, so thank you. So as in years past, we're going to go through pretty much page by page, similar to how we do with the budget. We have a PowerPoint presentation, but for this, we're just going to go through the PDF. Important to note, this year it was discussed that the strategic plan, we did expand this out to a 10-year CIP, which required an update to the formatting. So I hope you all enjoyed the new format. Staff level, we thought it was a little bit cleaner, a little bit brighter, easier to read. Haven't heard anything, so hopefully that means you all liked it. If not, please let me know. With that being said, we'll start going through the PowerPoint here. Cover table of contents. So the next section is the budget message, or the CIP message technically. It goes from page 3 to 8, similar to the letter of transmittal budget message, and also from an audit standpoint, the management discussion and analysis section that the auditors reference every year. This is kind of a high-level summary of what went into the construction of the CIP for this year, any changes, talks about funding, things of that nature. This goes from page 3 to 8. Also, as we've done in the past, just some housekeeping to remind everybody that we'll try to gain consensus on each project before we move on. Obviously, if we need to go back or move forward a little bit, we can, but it'll be just a little more structured and orderly if we try to gain consensus on each project before we move ahead, that way we're not bouncing around a lot. Also, new this year, which is to mimic the operating budget, the fiscal 25 numbers are the blue line that we're looking at. So the red lines are the 2 previous years. The blue line is the year in question that we're really focusing on, although obviously we'll take questions on any year should they arise, but we're really going to be focusing on the blue line going forward this evening. So as we get through the budget message, sorry, I'm just scrolling here.
Mayor, do you have a question?
Yeah, I have a question. Not gonna get away that easy. So the streets efficiency study, we're pushing that from 5 years to 7 years? Because?
Sure, yeah, so the streets efficiency study, as you stated, is typically a 5-year process. With the large project we did with that $3 million grant that we got from the state, that caught up a lot of the, I guess, really bad streets, if you will. And so also then going through the cash flows, which we'll get to in a minute, the cash flows with some of the other larger projects we had really necessitated breaking up the street program for the next couple of years. So this next year, and we'll get there in a couple slides, is going to be Central, and then the 2 years after that are the ones that we're contracted with the engineering firm to do. So based upon that very large program and then some of the other larger programs we have going on the next couple of years, we broke the next, I think it was 2 years of the street program up into 3, and didn't feel it to be prudent to do a study to then sit on a shelf for 2 years, then try to implement it. So we pushed it back to align with when we were gonna really be able to reassess the next 5-year program. Again, instead of doing it and then having it sit there for 1 year to 2 years, that we probably would have had to have redone anyway. So it just seemed like a more efficient operation at that point to push it back to 2 years, given the cash flows and the way we had to break up the road program.
Yeah, follow up. So I'm also looking at, you're looking at revenues and whatnot for utility taxes, and so you're anticipating certain projects moving forward and businesses coming into town, I take it, right? Because you're also going to put $1 million into the water and sewer projects.
That'd be correct. The increase in the non-home rule sales tax was largely predicated on the numbers provided to us from CIT, who you just heard from a few minutes ago. And then the utility tax, that significant increase is predicated on the existence of the data centers along Route 83, which I know you've all heard about on multiple occasions.
Okay.
Alderman Wood?
Yeah, maybe I'm missing something, so estimated revenues. And then the debt column. There's no debt until year 2034, am I not reading it correctly?
What page?
Page 11, estimated.
Oh, we're into the thing, okay.
So the debt in this particular section, the water and sewer section, that would be the city issuing $9 million in debt, which would align with the estimated shortfall to rehab or decommission the South Treatment Plant. So that's not the payment of debt. That's, I believe, on the next page, the debt service. So,
Occurring debt?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the first part of that.
Is it blank because we're not incurring debt?
Correct.
And it's
Yes.
not meant to show existing debt?
Correct, yeah. This is the estimated revenue. So the expense page, which is the very next page on page 12, this shows the outflow of payments for existing debt on this page. Here, these first 3 columns. These first 3 columns are the existing debt load that we're paying for. These 2 for the Ward 2 and 3 stormwater project. And then this is the line of credit with Itasca Bank for the property acquisition along Irving Park Road. Yeah, so the page before would be new debt issuance revenue coming into the city. And then this is the repayment of existing debt here on page 12.
Mayor, you have a question?
Yeah. I don't know. Are you?
I was gonna,
Go ahead.
so is the 8 or 9 million for the 83 project, is that depicted here, or is that in another location? Or that's not incurred yet?
Sure. That's in a different location, not in this document. You'll see numbers referencing to that in the operating budget in a couple weeks.
Mayor?
So the treatment plant loans is also in that, in the budgeting and not here?
Correct.
Okay.
So just finishing up the top of this page here. Well, we'll go back a page. So yeah, this is the non-home rule sales tax, utility tax, what we're expecting, nominal interest, the STPR, so the SDP road money. This is the money that we're getting for Central Avenue this upcoming fiscal year. The STPB is for the bridge, which is the Elizabeth Drive Bridge, the reconstruction there. The ITEP/DuPage County, this 310 was for the Tall Oaks Pond. These 2 numbers here, the 150 and the 352, that is for the trail/walkway extension along Elizabeth Drive from the bridge over to Wooddale Road. DUI technology, that would come into play in a couple of years when the police department is looking to replace, their in-car cameras, the laptops, and body cameras. We can use some of that money for those purposes. The DECO grant, that's the $3 million for the road resurfacing. The FEMA, IEMA, a couple of years back, we got the money for those property acquisitions, the 3 properties we acquired. This is earmarked, this was the demolition of those properties, and then this would be if there was an identified property, if the IEMA or FEMA finds money that we would acquire, it's a smaller parcel. Land sales, this will be sales of city-owned properties, be it next door, Central and Irving, et cetera. MFT, motor fuel tax, this is the city's match for the SDPB for the bridge, also for the light, the signalization of Central and Irving. And then the TIF, this is the transfer in to complete the Public Works facility.
Sorry, I was writing down. Alderman what? Alderman?
Jacob.
Oh, Alderman Jacob, you're first.
Real quick, I'm sorry, I missed it. What does the NHRST stands for?
Non-home rule sales
Non-home,
tax.
okay. Thank you.
Alderman Hartley.
So on the same item, is that 1% or is it 2%? That's just the 1%?
Correct, that's the other half. I guess the traditional 1% that goes into the general fund and the regular operating budget. So this is the 1% non-home rule sales tax only. Yeah. So it's only the 1%. Moving forward to the estimated revenues for water and sewer, we had traditionally pegged 1.25 million as effectively the contribution from the water and sewer fund, the funding for those projects. This 400,000 or 4.4 million from the TIF, that's for the water tower. There's this federal money that we're hoping to get or expecting to get for the Addison Road water main. And then you'll also see here in the out years starting in 28, a transfer in from the CIP, and that's predicated on that significant increase in the utility tax from the data centers, that we're going to transfer some of this in to help pay for some water projects, also save a little bit for that South Treatment Plant project. And this would also help stabilize eliminate the need for some future rate increases. I mean, obviously that's a ways out, so we can't do a full analysis of that, but this is kind of the little bit of the backstory to that, is to help subsidize and not subsidize, but supplant the need for water rate increases by doing this transfer in.
Alderman Jacob.
Yeah, I know a lot of residents, think that the city gets this huge, their property taxes, most of it goes to the city, which it doesn't, but where's the property taxes on here?
That's the general fund. Property taxes have nothing to do with capital funds.
Okay, so that's not, okay.
Yeah.
Mayor.
So Brett, I know we talked, and you're talking about this $1 million, and that's utility tax and, right, then possible some sales tax. That's being conservative, right? I mean, because naturally you don't get, again, we're only concentrating on the first year, and these taxes don't show up, then you have to adjust. But we're being conservative, I believe. Your answer was yes to me, but people are listening, and I like to let them know what's going on.
So you want to hear another yes?
Yeah. Yeah, because, I see these big numbers, and, could it be 800,000? It could be 1.2, right? You said you were conservative, correct?
Yeah, that's correct. I mean, the worst thing for the city is to get too far out over their skis on this, and obviously if things don't come to pass, then we'll have to adjust, but fortunately it's not a few years, so we would have the ability to adjust, but
right.
Yes, we try to be realistic yet realistically conservative, however that goes.
Alderman Artwood.
Thank you. Going to the TIF column, the 4.4 million, is that collectively all TIFs, or is that particularly any one TIF?
Sure, so that would be what we refer to the TIF 1, the Thorndale TIF.
Thank you.
So that's the revenue summary, so going on to page 12. Again, we've seen part of this page already with the debt issuances and the transfers, the transfer of the general fund, and the transfer of the water and sewer fund, which we just discussed. Then moving down further into the expenses, so in the past, you may recall that on each of the different types, the transportation, non-transportation, water, there was a summary and a listing of each project by year. Staff felt that was neat, it could be presented a little differently. So we switched to this grid view where we have the 10 years out. The caveat is you have to dig a little bit deeper if you haven't memorized all of these numbers. But this is the 10-year, 2 years prior, and then 10-year view on each of the projects that are then presented further within the CIP document. So these are the transportation projects. The non-transportation projects takes up 2 lines. And then here's the total of all those projects for the governmental types, which is going to be your transportation, non-transportation. So your roads, your bridges, and then your citywide initiatives are all listed down here. Moving on, the same presentation for the water and sewer fund, again by year, and you'll see this balloon, $15 million down here. That's the South Wastewater Treatment Plant showing up there in 34. Moving on to the pro forma, so the governmental pro forma, again, that's your transportation, non-transportation, your streets, bridges, and those citywide initiatives. Just recapping the summary of the revenues here, the expenses, and you can see here, in 25, 120,000, that's what really necessitated the need to split up that road program for the next couple of years based on some of those other larger projects, the bridge, the signal, and some stormwater, and then the debt service obviously as well. And then going down into the water fund, and then you can see, where this extra $1 million kicks in here from the general side and the effect that has. So we're kind of building up, I guess if you want to call it a little bit of a savings account to get ready for that South Wastewater Treatment Plant to try to mitigate, being such a significant hit in that out year, if we can, obviously depending on what costs are at that point in time and what the plan is.
So, Brad, I don't know, probably a couple months ago, at first we were talking about the treatment plant, we were trying to pay it cash, and then it just coincidentally, when the loan ends on the first treatment plant, might have to take a loan out on the second treatment plant. Is that what you're still doing here, or are we trying to pay it cash now? Pay as we go, or whatever you want to call it.
Sure, so I believe the last estimate we got for the south plant was 15 million? Yeah, it was 15 million, so, based upon this, there would be, theoretically 4.5 to 5 million in the water and sewer fund available for that, which that's why then on the page with the debt that Alderman Woods pointed out earlier, had that $9 million.
The $9 million.
The $9 million, yeah. So when we initially talked about it, I think we were going to be fine because it was going to be 4 or 5 million. Then it became 15 million a few years later. And to your point about the debt rolling off and whatever, as you'll see in the operating budget, with this getting pushed out to 34 with Mr. Lang and Mr. Gurley's help, there is going to be a little bit of breathing room in there between the first treatment plant being paid off and then this. But also importantly is if we do have to issue that debt for the south treatment plant, we didn't want to have a third debt issue in there. So we wanted to get rid of as many of those stacks as we could before reissuing any new debt, which would have, created a little bit of a bubble, and then we would have to have discussed how to pay for that. But if we can let one roll off, like I said, give a little breathing room, that would also help stabilize and mitigate the potential need for rate increases out in 2034, based upon the retirement of the North Treatment Plant debt a couple of years earlier.
Yeah, but honestly, should be plenty of room to, because right now, what do we borrow? Almost 30 million, and here you're talking 10 million, so the debt should be cheaper.
Correct.
So the water fund, the water fund should be good shape, right? Okay.
That's the goal, yeah.
Alderman Jacobs.
And the only thing I want to point out here, that's 2034, so I'm sure by 2034, that 15 million is probably going to be
It's too negative.
24 million. It's going to be more. I mean, unless we kind of say static and nothing changes, nothing changes, no prices change. Because all construction costs, labor costs, nobody gets raises for the next
Could be new
10 years or
technology.
just comment. Is that true?
True statement, yes.
Yeah, I think just to your point, I think, going out the 10 years now, I allows us to actually put it in a year, because the past few years in the 5-year CIP, it was always in that last year. And it was like, well, it's always in the last year. Well, it's really 7 or 8 years off. So this is, at this point in time, after the South Treatment Plant workshop, this is our best actual concrete estimate of when this will be done. And to your point, obviously, as things get closer, these numbers will get updated. But this is the first time that it's really been accurately represented with the most current numbers in this document. And yeah, of course, things are going to change. I mean, prices haven't gone up in the last few years. I don't think so. Probably going to be pretty static. I think you're right. But I think being able to identify it and be able to point to it in the document is going to give us an advantage from a planning standpoint and a preparation standpoint.
Proceed.
Thank you. So moving on to the new project pages, the top section is largely the same. We did change the font, change the look and feel of it a little bit. And again, this debt service page was not in the previous version of the CIP, so this is a new page, this particular presentation. And then in the project description, we do have the line of credit, what it was used for when it matures, same thing with the IEPA loan and the Series 2020A bonds, what it was used for and the maturity date. So even though we go out 10 years, in here you can see, the IEPA loan goes out to January of 42, and the 2028 goes out to December of 2040. So you'll be seeing this page for a while. And then just going down into the body, again, this was similar to the summary page, but you can see the breakdown of those costs for each debt series for the next 10 years. Going forward, we have the new summary page for the transportation section. Again, these are the previous, this is the actuals from the audit, 24. This is what we're anticipating to spend, provided by Mr. Lang et al. And then the blue column is really what we're focusing on. But obviously, some of the decisions for 25 are going to flow into 26, like the bridge, the signalization, et cetera. And then down here is a listing of the projects by project number, by title, and then the page number in the document. Moving to the first one, it's the Elizabeth Drive Bridge. Again, this has been discussed a number of times, paid for with the SDPB funds, and then the 20% match from the cities being paid. We're utilizing the MFT funds. Largely the Rebuild Illinois portion of the MFT funds for this particular project. And this is the updated timeline as provided to me by Mr. Lang by way of HR Green.
Alderman Jacobs.
So kind of going back to my original thing with the $15 million, are you, for all these out years, are you assuming some kind of, every year things go up 3 to 5%, or are you doing any increases, or are you just, it's static right now, that's kind of what you're projecting? Is inflation being taken into account on any of this?
Sure. It depends on the project, to be quite frank. These are the numbers that were given to us by HR Green by way of their design of the project. So I guess I'm trusting that HR Green is building in, a 1-year lead time on that. When we get to the road project, those numbers are pretty static. So there's not a lot of an inflationary factor in those. As Mr. Lang would tell you, every year the quantities change price just depending on, supply and demand. But So again, depending on the project, some have inflationary factors built in, some don't. The next project is the Elizabeth Drive Trail Extension. So this is again going from the bridge to Wooddale Road that's been discussed before. And this is with the ITEP, so there's a 25% match, and we'll be using the remainder of the Rebuild Illinois MFT funds for this project. Stormwater Master Plan. Again, this is the projected phasing of the next round of projects for the Stormwater Master Plan. I guess, the numbers are what they are, but really what everybody wants to see is the actual project list. So we'll go to the project list. So here's the estimated phasing of the project list for the next good number of years for the Stormwater Master Plan.
South Cedar.
General question, when do we anticipate the results back from the Ward 1 study?
Mr. Light?
So we've issued a report on the Ward 1 drainage study, and we discussed it at committee. And the committee elected to go ahead with the first 3 projects of their proposed 10-year capital plan. But given cash flows, we've decided to break those up. It'd be best to phase those over 3 years. So those first 3 projects are the ones you see there under the program projects. And then the rest of the potential future projects are the remainder of the 10-year capital plan, including the area 5, I believe it was the Sunnyside Alley, which was a revision to that report.
Yeah. Okay, so we split it up.
Correct.
Okay, did you guys, I don't remember reading about you guys splitting this up, so was I not at the meeting, or was that a decision made by you guys?
This is the meeting, if I could speak for Director Wilson.
Okay, this is the.
Yeah, that arose out of the need based on the available cash flows, essentially.
And so, I know the county was working on general or regional project, and we're looking at dollars. We don't have anything in here for dollars yet, right? Because there's nothing been awarded, correct? So that could change things if we get awarded money. Is that correct?
Correct. We've currently applied for 2 funding sources: a water quality improvement grant and the green infrastructure grant opportunity, which we hope to hear on early this year.
Yes, I'm looking at fiscal year 2029, and we have the potential future projects, 511,000. But then when I look at this chart, it says 566,500. So is that where you put some inflationary factor in there, or like where's that 511,000 in the master plan?
Yeah, so it's really the 500. It's the 515. In the middle column of construction, and then the other 51,000 is the supervision cost. So, the project itself was costing the 511, but then there's the additional 50,000 and change in the supervision from the engineers to oversee the project.
Yes, so going to that inflationary factor, is that how we went from 511 to 515?
I'll go with sure. And this is the draft, so I mean, if it's that egregious, we can knock the $4,000 off, so they match. I mean, the other years doesn't match by 2,000, and then the other one's 3,000. So, I think when we were constructing it, we just put, round numbers in the construction one being out there. So apologies for that. I'll clean up the $7,000 error in the document.
And again, I'm not too concerned about that. I'm just, like when we talked about the South Wastewater Treatment Plant, I mean, again, we have 15 million plugged in. I mean, I think we should be building in some kind of inflationary factors, because we all know in 2034, that 15 million might be 20. I mean, I think these numbers will be more realistic if we put some kind of inflationary factors in there. Because even the mayor saying, well, we're only gonna have to borrow this much, but, well, let's put the inflationary factors into the income as well, and are we at the same point?
Mayor?
The answer to that, very simple. Right now, we're working on next year's project. This is 10-year outlook, and every year, we're going to review this, and we'll have better numbers every year. It's gonna change. I guarantee you, next year, we're not gonna see these exact same numbers for 27, 28, and 29. Things may change, or some emergency may come up, some whatever. That's why we do this, it's for planning, but we're not gonna get every number down to the, sorry.
Well, I get, sorry.
Go ahead.
Oh, okay, I mean, I get that, but again, if we're gonna do that planning, it should be more realistic, is all I'm saying. Let's put a 4% inflationary factor in there and run the numbers like that. At least it's a little more realistic than us looking out and saying, oh, 2034, it's gonna spend 15 million, that's what the cost is today. I know we're only looking at the next year, but why are we looking 10 years out if we're not looking at realistic numbers 10 years out? To me, it just doesn't seem like it's realistic.
Alderman Artwood, did you have your hand up?
I did. So the program projects, top line, Oak Meadows, 83 detention basin, conveyance sewers, period? Is that 2 projects? And then study Southern Ward 2-3 area? Or is that 1 item or 2 items?
2.
2 items. The study is separate. It's included in fiscal year 2026.
83 Ward 1.
Correct.
Conveyance sewers, and then study, okay. So
Correct.
Kept reading it goes, not sure. Okay.
Alderman Messina?
Yeah, I guess I'm just a little surprised that we're hearing about this now, right? Like, maybe I'll be alive in 20 years, but some of this stuff is kind of wild. Like, I gotta go back to my residents and tell them some of these projects that, my understanding is we're doing Ward 1, we're doing the study, we're doing the projects, move on. Ward 2. What I'm seeing here is things slotted, and to the mayor's point, next year it's probably gonna look different, and once we finish 2 and 3, I'm guessing just like the street studies, some of my stuff gets pushed down even further. So I guess I'm just surprised. This is the first I'm hearing about this. I thought we were finishing 1 ward, done, move to the next ward. Unless I'm crazy, but was,
Mayor?
which is highly likely.
All right, so, to that comment. We did the big stormwater project at 2 and 3, right? And there was a southern portion of that, and we put that one on hold. So are you saying we should have continued with that one before we went to this one? We're trying to split the money around. I remember the conversations on the Ward 1 study, and we said we're gonna start at the southern end. Nobody said we're gonna do the entire thing right in a row. So I just want to be clear, same thing like Ward 2 and 3, otherwise Alderman Catalano going to tell me the same thing.
That's what I was gonna, that's why I had my hand.
Hold on. You know, we need to be realistic, okay? So we're trying to start the projects, they all cost money. And we can't, all mine got to get done first, or because we started, he's going to say the same thing, the other wards are going to say the same thing. We have to take a real approach, a steady approach. That's all I got to say.
Alderman Catalano?
Yeah, so my question is on page 20, where it says we're monitoring the projects, especially the southern phase. How are we monitoring that? I mean, is there a system that we're using, or
Well, we're monitoring the existing system that was put in along Potter and Prospect, and we do that by gauging it during storms and making sure the level of the wet well is sufficient and that water is getting moved properly. We're also monitoring the southern phase of Ward 2 and 3. Any storm event, we had Robinson Engineering out there to give us a review of the last flooding we had on Arlene Drive earlier this year. You'll see in fiscal year 2026, the design costs are higher than the other years by about $50,000. That's to fund a design either on our own initiative with Robinson Engineering or whoever to go out there and design possibly or look at conceptual plans for the southern area of that, or to possibly team up with the Forest Preserve District as they're planning some improvements to their property. Maybe there's the opportunity for us to join with their engineering firm to look at opportunities for us to put some detention on their property.
So follow up, so since we completed the project on the north part, we have been flooded twice already in the southern part, so we still have issues there, but we are taking it in the back burner, and I understand we don't have all the money to take care of all these projects. Thank you.
I was going to comment on the same storyline that I thought that they were going to be more closely linked too, as I remember us talking about the projects and talking about economic viability of linking some of those Ward 1s, not that I was in favor, because, you know, I personally favor Ward 2, but I thought that there was going to be some more linking. That's how I remembered it also. I'll argue against myself.
Director Lynn?
So we had every intent of moving forward with the first 3 projects of that 10-year draft capital plan as the council had directed. However, $2.2 million would have resulted in a negative balance in this capital project for us. So it's just balancing it with other capital projects. Which ones don't you want to do? Which is why we felt this project lends itself nicely to be split up, as it was 3 separate projects. It worked out much better for the cash flow to phase it over 3 years.
Here, follow-up?
A follow-up. And so I get that that's probably what you did. And the only reason I remember it, because I was thinking it should be broken up, but the argument was that there was significant savings linking them together. So I guess as we're looking at the trade-offs, is there greater savings putting them together? I mean, this is the conversation we had when we did all the streets in the one subdivision in Royal Oaks, right? Do we spend $5 million now? I think that was the half, $5.5 million or something, or do we spread it over 3 years, which was, we were led to believe that would be $8 million then with the escalator that was Alderman Jacob was mentioning. That's all.
Alderman Messina?
Yeah, Alderman Woods kind of alluded to it, but it's like $2 million investment here over the next 4 years, 3 years, 4 years. And then $5 million, which is, in my opinion, peanuts over 20 years. Like, how much more flooding does my ward have to have over 20 years? Like, I don't. Alderman Woods' point. Like, this makes no sense what you guys did over 20 years. Like, how much flooding over 20 years? This, especially some of those blocks. How many emails do you get a month, Jeff, from us on some of these areas? It's like ridiculous. This is a joke. Fiscal year 2031 for Central and Aspen. Are you kidding me? Do you know how many times we've been bugged and how we talked to you about buying the damn house? I mean, it's just wild. So whoever put this together, I'm not happy. I don't know what you guys where you were taking this meeting, but clearly didn't hear priorities or didn't hear us or look at hundreds of emails that we've sent you guys.
Well, first I was going to compliment Alderman Woods for patiently waiting for that Ward 2 street project that took 4 years because it cost so much money that we had to spread that over 4 years. But we have not unlimited funds here, so typically the council directs us to draft balanced budgets. So if we want an unbalanced negative fund balance in the CIP, we'll do it. But we're normally told to do balanced budgets. So this was how we programmed it. We always program the CIP to be balanced. So we could do all these projects, just tell us which other ones you don't want to do.
Don't appease the residents by doing this. This is a joke. I'm not going to show somebody a 20-year study. Like, we'll get to you in 20 years if you're still alive. And it's a joke. It was a waste of money. Sorry. Should have done the whole thing.
Yeah, so How much was the project for Ward 3 and 4? How much money do we, or 2 and 3? How much do we pay? I was wondering how much that
That was
was.
20 million, and that's okay. It
Okay,
needed it.
and it needed it, and it, well, how much was it? That's 16 million, okay, so it needed it, fair enough. So fair enough. Well, here, I mean, now, I mean, Central and Aspen, I mean, we had the homeowner complaining for the last 8 years, and now now when I call them, I'm gonna say, well, you know what, in 2031, we might get to your street. I mean, I just don't get it. I mean, this probably totals, and I don't, maybe 5-6 million total versus, how much did you say? 16 million, so,
But don't worry, we have 3,000 for you. We have a backyard drainage program, so we maybe can get you 3,000.
so I'm gonna call up Montrose and Sunnyside residents and say, by the way, we're gonna fix the flooding by your house in 2043. I mean,
We didn't buy it.
we don't own a pond in Ward 1.
Mayor, please.
Hey, hold on a second, honestly. The first 3 phases, if you get the money, that 26, 27, 28 may happen all at once. The other thing is, we forget to do that big project, Ward 2 and 3, whatever you want to call it. 40% of our non-home rule sales tax is in there. We use it every year to pay the debt. Now, if you guys want to sit here and advance everything and take 100% of the non-home rule sales tax, we can stop all projects and just do this and nothing else for the next 10 years. I mean, come on, you guys. We have to, we can't do everything. I've been saying this for years. The general fund is shrinking. Now, naturally, we have some taxes coming online here, right? Passed the business tonight. Supposedly significant dollars. We've got the data center, significant dollars. But if you guys want everything done right away, well then start saying you want to issue more debt. Honestly, I know everybody wants to get everything done, but I don't know, show me the money.
Then change the scope of the study. I'm gonna talk against myself and say, do the study for the whole city then, and then plug this in. But when you advertise this, and I go out, and Peter goes out, and we talk to people, and we're getting hammered, and now I'm telling them, oh, we're there, we'll get there, we'll get 7-year plan, 5-year plan. Sorry, you're on the 25-year plan. Like, no, this was misrepresented, and like I said, I would have rather been the whole city done. Thought we were gonna consolidate to try to make it cheaper. That's why I thought our area first. Thankfully, thank you guys. If I'd have known that, I would have said do the whole city like we do a street sufficiency study and just stack rank everything. So at least I don't misrepresent the study. Now we have egg on our face, we look like idiots, which you guys don't care because you're not gonna have to face the wrath that we will. That's all. So it's more about the study as a whole.
Alderman Jacob?
So, and again, with this being the case, then this means, I mean, I know Ward 3 still needs more work, so this means, Tony, I guess you need to tell your residents in 2050, we may get to the rest of the flooding because we're still working on Ward 1 and up to 2043, so probably won't get to your ward till 2050.
I won't be around then, so I'm not worried about it.
So, yeah, I mean, we just spent all this money on the study, then we shouldn't have even studied all these potential future projects. We should have just studied for 3 years what we're gonna actually do. And like Alderman Messina said, now we've told residents that, hey, we're working on these issues and help is on the way, and now I'm gonna have to tell the same resident, well, we're probably not gonna get to you till 2031, and well, sorry, Montrose and Sunnyside, we have you plugged in for 2043. I probably won't be here. Jeff, I don't know, Jeff might still be here as city manager. You might be finance director still, but most of us won't be here.
Mayor, please, did you?
No, again, we're doing work, right? We didn't do the south side of that other project, because we don't, number one, didn't want to borrow money, but how's the thing working, right? And as we do streets, we're trying to add in larger sewers also, try and help the situation along. Honestly, we're, number one, when people ask me, hey, listen, we're doing the studies, but we can't do everything at once. There's only so much we can do, and that's what I tell the residents. I don't promise them any dates.
I'm okay with that when it's the whole city. Don't tell me that it's my ward, because now I gotta go back and tell these people that I would rather the study had been everywhere.
But we did the study to see, hey, what are the issues in this ward? That's what, you're trying to pinpoint them, and you've got to start somewhere. Now you're plugging them in. What, if you get
How do you
money.
tell someone that the flooding, you're gonna wait 20 years, sorry, your flooding is not that important, but don't worry, and I'm totally back you guys. Sorry, it's not as important as these people, but you can wait 20 more years, maybe 40 more floods, 40 more insurance claims. No, it doesn't make sense. Just, I wish the study would have been different, sorry.
I see your point, Alderman, and perhaps we shouldn't have plugged in fiscal years for these potential future projects. Just for that exact reason, we update this every year, and based on available funding, that can change in an instant. We did many years worth of road program projects over the past couple of years, streets that weren't even programmed within the streets efficiency study because we had the available funds. So that can change at any given time.
Can I just say one comment? I promise I'll sit over here. We were supposed to have a call, you and I are supposed to talk tonight about a street that legitimately you guys went out, you and Patrick went out, talked to these people. You didn't have to say anything. We kind of had to say something, and now we go back and we say, hey, we heard you, we're advocating for you as you asked. We'll see you in 2043. Like, come on, right? I mean, kind of makes us look bad.
That's a good campaign slogan.
I see your point, but I have to program projects within the available budget. I can't create money that doesn't
My point is
exist.
like, let's just say it, right? Like, if you're saying tell people the truth, that's what I'm not mad about this. I get the reality. I'm mad that it was just misrepresented. That's all.
Hold on, I'm sorry. How do you not know that you can't do all projects at once? I don't understand.
Staff ranked the whole city like the streets.
I know, but we can't do all projects at once. This was specific for Ward.
I'm not mad about telling people.
I know, but we
I'm
didn't
mad at
misrepresent
people.
anything.
I'm saying we prioritize, you guys.
Okay. All right, call to order, okay. All right, Alderman Artwood.
Thank you. So I just wanted some clarity and comment to the mayor's comment. I'm not asking to spend any more money, never once did that roll off my lips. I was just commenting on the vast divergence from what originally was thought to be done versus what we're seeing. And I think part of that is this, as we get into the longer or the farther looking out, 10 years now, it's getting increasingly harder to program this stuff in and make it make sense when you know every year that we have to reshuffle the deck anyway, whether it's streets, sewers, buildings, we're doing public works, we're doing the police department, we're doing a ton of these things, and we keep saying yes to them. But somehow there's got to be a smoother way to transition, take out some of the lumps in the road, if you will, and mending these things together so that they aren't 5 years apart or 10 years apart.
Alderman Jacob.
Yeah, so, again, my whole thing is, maybe we should have been told that, hey, this study is a long-term study, not a 20-year study, because, this goes beyond 2034. We're, fiscal year 2043 is when we're getting to Montrose, so that's more than 10 years. And we're talking 16 million that was spent and had to be spent, and I'm glad we spent the money, but now Tony's sitting over there, Alderman Catalano's sitting over there wondering, well, geez, if their flooding issues aren't going to be fixed till 2043, when are we going to look at the rest of my ward again? Is that going to be 2050? What do I need to tell my residents? Again, we should have specified. This study is a long-term, 5-10-year study, not we're doing this study. And again, I believed, and Alderman Woods said the same thing, and Alderman Messina. we were led to believe that this study was gonna be, it was gonna be, we're gonna do the study and we're gonna get it done to save money and within the next, maybe 5 years or whatever, not 20 years.
Mayor, please.
Honestly, when I started, we did studies and did nothing. Okay, this council is doing projects. And believe me, I have Brad give me an updated list by ward on how much we're spending for the past 10 years, and we're pretty close. Okay, so it's not like one ward is getting more than the other ward. Unfortunately, it comes down to the dollars. I don't like it any more than you do, but you know what? We might get more than half the money, 70% of that first 3 phases, and if the county comes through and the other grant, all of a sudden, boom, that changes everything. We don't know that right now. I know you guys are frustrated and we want to get everything done, but unfortunately we can't.
Director Lane?
I'd also like to point out that a lot of the storm sewer projects that you see on this list, when the streets efficiency study is done, we plan to coordinate a lot of these storm sewer conveyance projects with the road program. So a lot of that might shuffle around some of these out years as well.
Thank you. Anything else on that?
Moving on to the street sufficiency or the resurfacing program, as discussed earlier this evening. This year, we're pretty much just doing central. It's pretty much exclusively central, and then in 26 and 27, were the other roads that were previously programmed. We pretty much moved everything back another year due to cash flows to provide a balanced CIP. To Alderman Jacobs' point, there is no inflationary factors in here. We can certainly throw some in, but at the same time, once we do the new street sufficiency study, that'll shed a little more light on what those numbers are going to look like.
Oh, sorry, Alderman Arlen.
I'm all the way over here. The supervision, so the construction 500,000, supervision 50, I'm sure we're using just a 10% number, right, to come up with that, which is in line with. In the past, we've had conversation, is that for full supervision? Because we've had conversation to tail some of that back so that we're not spending as much money on that. Is that considered full supervision, or is that a tailored back? Or it's just a number we don't know?
It's been my understanding that that's full. I have to defer to Mr. Lang on that, but it's my understanding that that's still full because there's never been an official, statement or direction from the council to dial that back. We try to analyze it a little bit on a case-by-case basis, but there's never been an omnibus statement to pare that back, in all cases.
So let's pare it back. Omnibus. That was an omnibus statement. Let's at least look at paring it back. I know we talked about it, but it doesn't seem that we've done it, and I don't know. And I think we all agreed that the reward that we're getting for the full supervision isn't there. There's only so many things they can do. So once you get past the checking quantities, spot checking the work, the guy standing there all day watching them lay pipe, really there's no benefit. And we're using the same contractors and the same engineering firms over and over again, so there's a level of what's the word I'm looking for, familiarity or service with those companies. So we could save, it doesn't sound like a lot, but 25 times 10 is $250,000. And some of the bigger projects are the same thing. We look at like the bridge project and all those other ones, I mean, we're probably spending, multiple millions of dollars. That's my 2 cents.
Well, based on that, so looking at that fiscal year 23, the actual estimated, it's really not that 10% number when it comes out to play. Is that just more like a placeholder number of that percentage? Because that's not really what it was spent, it was less.
Yeah, so again, and Mr. Lang can talk about this a little bit better, but there have been some projects, and depending on the size of the project, each project's, I guess, different. So the level of involvement by the engineer would be different. So you could have a $3 million program if they're just doing a grind and overlay. That's a lot easier to supervise than if it's a full depth reconstruction. So that would play into that a little bit. And then let Mr. Lang talk, but just want to make sure that everybody's on board with paring that back, and then we can work that into the program. So.
Director Lang?
Yeah, 10% is just kind of an industry standard when you're estimating engineering costs, 10% for design, 10% for construction supervision. Typically, the larger the project, the lower those percentages will be. So oversight on a larger project, a $5 million project, say, might be more like 6 to 8% rather than 10. And then the smaller projects, it could be 10 to 15%. It just depends on each project, as Director Wilson said. And we do currently, it's kind of on a project-by-project basis. We don't have 100% supervision on like our sewer lining projects. They do a lot of post-televising things that we can tell. We don't need to stand there and watch them pull liner through pipe. But we definitely can look at scaling back the construction supervision specifically on road projects and just all projects in general.
That's all.
I guess my time is up.
Your time is up. Thank you. Okay, we can move on.
So as I said, just next couple of years, it's just Central Avenue next year, Walter Lincoln Court Robin following, and then listing of streets here for this one. The next one is my personal favorite project sheet, the closeout of the safety improvements at Irving and Wooddale Road, which the state may or may not send us at some point in the future. But the specter of it still looms, so we have to budget for it. And we'll just deal with it when it finally comes in.
Alderman Jacob.
So when was the Wooddale and Irving Park safety improvements, when was that completed?
November 2016.
2016, and we're in 2024. So, I mean, so for all these years, we just keep pushing this 900,000 that's just sitting in a bank account. Let's push it to 2028, because we've been waiting all these years, and use this 900,000 for streets, for flooding, for something where it could be used, and like you said, we'll deal with it when it happens. I mean, I highly doubt 2024 is going to be the magic year. We've been waiting since 2016 for someone to come knocking and say, hey, you owe us $900,000. I mean, that money's sitting there, correct?
It is.
Are we able to use that for other things and budget for 2027 or 2028?
Well, considering the ending cash balance this year was $100,000, I would not advise taking $900,000 and putting it someplace else, because if they do send us the invoice this year, then it would be $800,000 upside down. So that would not be advisable.
Well, but we could deal with it when that time comes, and I highly doubt it's going to happen in 2024.
But it could.
Well, it'll also happen in 2043, so.
It could. Next is the signalization project at Irving and Central. Again, we're utilizing MFT funds for this project, and I believe that design work is underway, and this is kind of where it currently sits. The preventative maintenance program. This program in previous years had been included in the street resurfacing and sidewalk program, the STR1 program. However, that page was getting a little bit cumbersome to track with everything flowing through there. So this year we decided to break out the preventative maintenance program for Mr. Lang, which includes the selective patching, crack sealing, rejuvenation, that's the reclamite, and pavement marking. So these projects were being done in the past. Like I said, it was just rolled into a different project sheet, but we broke it out just to provide a little transparency and also ease of management for the programs.
Actually, I have a question about this. So since we're increasing it $50,000, is that just for increased costs, or are we doing more areas, or a combination of both?
Yeah, historically, before last year, that's typically what we would put in for preventative maintenance. We scaled back the last couple of years just due to the larger street program that we were doing and wanted most of our funds to go there and didn't need as much more preventative maintenance measures. So historically, that's approximately what we spent on preventative maintenance.
Okay, thank you.
So that's the end of the transportation section. Moving into the non-transportation, similar presentation with the summary and then the project sheets, project listing, and the page numbers. Moving into streetlight installation, you can see what we've done the past couple of years. And a couple of years ago, there was a motion to increase this to $100,000 every year. And so that's what's presented again here for you this evening.
Alderman Seymour?
I don't know if this is the forum to talk about it, but is this, Jeff, to talk about some of the struggles we had this year with some of the notifications, some of the improvements that you guys made as far as that?
The policy for the streetlight installations?
Not so much the policy, but the the way we went about it. Like we talked about notifying residents. If you remember, we got some surprises on the street.
Yeah, kind of like the direction moving forward, tweaks to the installations.
Right. Not so much a public hearing, but like people knowing ahead of time that this is happening, maybe sooner.
Yeah, I mean, Alan, do you want to cover what we do and then some potential tweaks to that?
Yeah, so the changes we made recently are to notify residents ahead of the committee meeting, the Public Works Committee meeting, where we make the recommendation for where streetlights will be placed. That gives them an opportunity to come and hear the committee discuss it and see the proposed locations, and then another opportunity to council when it's formally approved to give their opinion on it or not. So we stayed away from surveying, as was the direction of the council, because a third of the block won't care, a third will respond in the affirmative, a third will respond in the negative. So we'll be right back where we started, not installing streetlights anywhere if we go that route.
Follow-up?
Yeah, did we come to an agreement? I don't know if this is a vote thing, but like where they would have a choice on the type of light. Like if you remember, we had Murray. They went on Murray, and they're like, well, why can't we have the lights like Spring Oaks? So, do we come to an agreement with that, or is it?
I don't think we have our streetlight policy. We have a standard residential light pole, which we install everywhere, and then we have the decorative pole, the prairie light fixtures, which is an unfunded project in the CIP. So there's really only one type of street pole we install throughout town.
I think the real concern was we've noticed that I know the council wants to be proactive with the lights, but sometimes the residents on the street don't actually want the lights. Correct.
It's a huge surprise.
And that's going to continue to be a problem. So since we've implemented this new program, we've already had residents who don't like the program. When we instituted this to begin with, we had cautioned that this might be the case, and we decided let's move forward. And it was indeed the case that a lot of times the residents don't want the lights. I know it's not their choice because we're deciding for them, but it has been an issue already.
Yeah, so I just wanted to follow up on that same thought process. So before we did the survey, somebody walked around, we got signatures, half wanted it, half didn't want it, then they failed. So now we're sending out notices that we're going to be talking about it at the council meeting. Committee, sorry. And then again, we're going to send out another notice that we're going to be talking about it at the council meeting, after the committee meeting, to give them a second shot at saying no or yes. And possibly coming out with the same, are we doing a different, are we doing a different job to reach the resident than we were doing the survey? I'm trying to figure out why we expect the outcome to be different.
We don't, and I remember that when Alderman Messina and I were speaking, it was kind of disingenuous in a way to maybe get their hopes up that they can come and change the outcome, because then it essentially turns into a survey here to voice their displeasure in the light installation. when the council had said with this new program, what they wanted to do is disregard what the people on the block said and install the lights. Now you're telling them, oh, we're discussing it at this meeting, come and talk about it, but we don't care because we're installing it anyway because that's our proactive policy. So it's kind of weird.
Yes.
Yes, I mean, the streetlights that went in this year affected Ward 1. I guess it would have been nice if we could have did one in Ward 1, one in Ward 2. I mean, since we had 2 streets available, and at least it's like it was a test project in Ward 1 versus maybe trying it at a couple different wards and seeing what the outcome, I mean.
No. So the first year we had Gilbert, okay? I had 2 or 3 people yelling at me because they didn't want them. And the rest of the people said nothing. And then once they went in, I got people stopping me at the Jewel. I had 2 people stop me. Thank God you finally put lights up.
Thank you.
Now, we're gonna have that on every block. So you wanna have the people come in here, let's say it's your ward, and you're gonna vote no because they're upset. You got 5 people out of 30 here. You're gonna vote no. The other 6 are gonna vote yes because that's the council's direction. So either we do the lights or we don't. You know, the surveys didn't work. Honestly, I was the one that started it a long time ago with the 30,000. And we were having issues, and I said, hey, do you guys want to do the lights or not? Everybody said yes. Okay, let's put 100,000 in. It was Ward 3, then I think some went to Ward 2 and 1 this last year, right? Was it 2 wards, kind of, or?
Correct. Yeah, Murray Drive is kind of like the borderline between
Yeah,
wards
it's
2
50,
and
50.
1.
So, yeah, I got the calls. They yelled at me, ruined the character of my neighborhood, this, that. The rest of the people didn't say a word, but when I see them, hey, you know what, I like the streetlights.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe it was on their neighbor's property, not theirs.
Thank you.
You know, there's not a perfect solution. Either we want to do the lights or we don't. If you don't, hey, you're going to save $1 million on the 10-year plan right there. Do we want to light up the streets or we want them pitch black? Decide. I thought we wanted the lights. We were unanimous.
Yeah, we did.
Now we want to give people a chance to come in here so we can shoot them down. Say, yeah, we're doing them anyways. We're just going to piss them off. Why?
I'm not asking. I just, for the first time, heard that that's what we were doing.
Alderman Messina.
I didn't realize you were doing that.
I just, to be clear for the record, I never said I don't want them. That was not me. What I said and why we had the conversation, a very long one, was the communication, right? Like, we kind of got hit like tsunami. We know we talked about it because you guys said recommend a street. And we even had a conversation of like, well, where does this fall on? And I even told the resident, don't vote for me. Like, it's my fault. I guess it's my fault. As the alderman, I should have known and I should have came to you. So the conversation I had with staff was like, help me out. Somebody just drove through my house. I can't remember what we talked about a year ago, let alone 6 months ago. Can you like let me know that we're gonna do this? Because the calls we were getting was boom, 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 boom. Hey, they're marking the street. Oh my God, they're marking the street. Oh my God, they're here today. It was like a fire drill. And so what we talked about was like, guys, can you just give us a heads up so like we can get ahead of it? If we can even, if we have to walk the street, knock on the door, we will. That was all. So I was for it. I agree. I just think it kind of caught us by surprise and we just got clobbered. So that was all. I'm not saying I'm not for it. I'm just saying like we talked about better, help us better notify.
Okay. Alderman Catalano.
Yeah, to the mayor's point, the street Erman and Gilbert, right? A lot of people were against it. Not a lot of people, maybe 4 in the street. But now when they do see me, they says, I'm glad we put the lights up. So I don't know how we ever lived without the lights. And it makes a big difference. And I think we changed that policy a few years ago that we were going to do this. So, and I walked, you know, 2 of the neighborhoods getting petitions signed, and I got most of them to say, yeah, we want lights. And then when the city actually sent the survey out, nobody sent them in. You know, I mean, they did send them in, but they were against putting the lights up. Some didn't respond, so we had to give them the no vote. So
It sounds like people want the light, but not in their yard
And
on their
normally,
parkway.
and normally we do put it in the middle of the houses. We don't put it right in front of the house, so. That's it.
Alderman Hartwood.
Going back to this, so why are we notifying? Can't we just, if everybody's agreeing to put the lights up, then just put the lights up? And maybe the answer to that question is tell the alderman before you go to his board and put the light up,
Mayor.
that he reaches out. This is going back and sending out surveys or asking people and coming to 2 separate meetings. Doesn't make sense. And if that's what we're doing, then I'm voting, let's not put it up any lights, because that's a complete waste of time. We're back to the same thing that we were trying to get away from.
Very, very simple. Notify the alderman, you guys are gonna tell us the streets in advance, the alderman will know. You send a letter saying, hey, just so you know, on that block, you're gonna get lights this year. And so now they know they're gonna get calls. Listen, I had 2 of my friends call me on that one block. And they weren't very nice to me. But you know what? I told them, guys, we're lighting up the entire city. I'm sorry. That's what we're doing. And yeah, but noons. Couldn't you skip my house? I go, no. I go, there's so many feet per light. I go, even the curbs, when we do curbs. I go, honestly, they did my block curbs. I didn't get new curbs. But my thing is, my driveway is sinking on the city side. What are you guys gonna do for me? You just bypass my curb. It's the luck, it's the way it goes. You can't like everything.
Dr. Lane.
Yes, we actually initiated an alderman survey earlier in the year before we even bring the recommendation to the committee, assuming that you guys are much better in tune with your constituents than I am, knowing where streetlights are wanted. And then we send out the notice to the residents just as a courtesy, as we would any other construction project, letting them know that, hey, this is coming, it'll be discussed, and then, but typically what people do with the notices is they throw them out, don't think about them again, and then everyone goes up in arms when they see the equipment roll out or the markings go in place.
Yeah, and we're rotating wards, so I think we're gonna be in, probably Ward 4 this year?
Correct.
So you guys will get the calls. Along with me.
Yeah, and again, I voted for it, I want to light up the city too, but it's like Alderman Messina said, all we're asking for is a different process, so the aldermen do know ahead of time, so we're not caught off guard. We talk about a lot of things up here, and I don't think anybody up here, unless, they write everything down or record everything, they don't remember every single thing we talk about every time we're up here.
Just to wrap this up, we talked about a public hearing, just to be clear, wasn't the intent to, there was an idea we threw around as a notice, and selfishly for me, it was more of a, because you said, they're gonna throw it out. You can have a public hearing, we have hundreds of public hearings for random things that happen in this city that no one shows up for. My thought, that we bounced the idea, is I can at least go back when I'm getting hammered with phone calls, and I'll never forget that day, but I'd be like, you had an opportunity to at least let me know, we had a public hearing. That was why we threw it out. I think we agreed that it was not feasible. So just so you know, Alderman Woods, we're not doing that. I don't think we agreed on. That's what I'm saying. Where do we land on all this? Because I just want to be clear, maybe for other people's sanity and sake of their workday, they know what to expect. A public hearing to say no is not worth it. Just some way to just communicate it. I don't know what that looks like, but we said public hearing, so at least we could throw it back selfishly and be like, you had your chance to say something, but.
So, go ahead.
Yeah, I think what we were planning or originally doing was notifying the resident, as we would in any construction project, that this is happening after it was approved. And the theory was, well, these people didn't have a voice, we should send them a letter and let them know before we vote, which my response was, then that leads them to believe that they have some sort of role in maybe voting it down, and I advise that's probably not a good idea.
Well, no, I just want to make sure we're clear for future people, if that's not what we're doing, I'm okay with it. Damage is done for us, we got killed. But maybe for the other wards, so that's fine. There's no public hearing, we just threw ideas out.
Mayor, please.
Yeah, listen, we do the tree trimming. How many calls do you get when they're trimming your ward? Same thing.
Those grow back.
You know, I agree. Once we know the streets,
That's all.
you
We
just
don't have
let
to
the
spend more time.
aldermen know, the letters will go out to them. We're gonna put this in the budget in a few weeks. It's already, so once it's in the budget, these guys are going out to bid. We're not having a vote over here. They're just gonna bring us the best bid here or whatever, and we're gonna say yes. So it's not like the residents are gonna get a chance to talk about it.
You just said that.
No,
No, I said I advised against that. Yes, that would be giving them false hope. That would be giving them false hope.
can we at least list them in here, I guess, in the future? That's my point, just transparency. Can you at least list them in here?
Do we know that at this point, though?
Well, they asked everybody, give us a couple streets, right? Or was it just us?
No, we typically do that on a yearly basis, so
Okay.
very soon I'll be reaching out to the Ward 4 aldermen to ask which locations they would recommend.
Okay, I thought it was all of us at one time, so you only asked us at the time. Okay, okay, you'll know.
Thank you.
I was gonna say, I think what we could do, though, if we know the ward rotation, we can probably identify what wards are upcoming.
Yeah.
So just, you know, from a mental preparation standpoint, do you at least know, okay, I don't have to worry about this for another 2 years or whatever. So I think we can probably put the ward rotation in.
Increase your phone plan, your call plan that month.
Oh, actually, one follow-up on that. So is 100,000 based on inflation and numbers? Obviously, if we spent 91 last year and prices are going up, is that accurate as you can be number?
Do as many as we can.
Yeah, a typical streetlight is between 7 and 10,000 for installation, so that gets us, 10, which is about 2 blocks, so.
Okay, thank you.
Moving on, this project, again, due to the cash flow constraints in fiscal '25, got pushed back again. I know for a while, Public Works was having, problems with IDOT realizing that LEDs exist and are allowable. I think we've worked through that, but again, this project has been pushed back again, due to the cash flow. So we'll hopefully free up next year, or the following year, to get those done.
Are there any grant opportunities for this because they would be more efficient lighting? I know you're always looking for grants, but is there anything that's in the works for this?
Defer to Mr. Lane, but not that I'm aware of at this time for anything. I mean, I think the grants used to be for replacements, just the Cobra heads themselves, but not necessarily a whole new standard,
Yeah, typically state routes are excluded from grant funding, unfortunately. So we've looked at that in the past and were rejected.
Okay, thank you.
Moving on, IT infrastructure and strategic plan. So we have some monies in here for the next 4 years for Director Stenson to work on some of the plans that were either previously identified or were outlined in the IT assessment that was just done. We also have a list of some projects here. Some are earmarked out a couple of years, such as the PD items, the cloud services. I know that was in this year's operating budget. That is an ongoing process currently. And then also some potential future projects that have been identified by staff that we'll want to look at. That haven't been programmed yet. So those are, TBD.
Alderman Jacob.
Were these projects program projects? Are these what that IT person had recommended? Like in this order, or?
Sure. Yeah, so again, the migration to the cloud, that's already an ongoing process that will finish in '25. And then Director Stenson, in consultation with Chief Zito, agreed on 26 and 27 for those PD items.
Thank you.
Alderman Arpwood.
Yeah, potential future projects, clock tower sign and other component updates. What signs would we, what is that?
If you want to.
Mr. Murphy.
Some of the electronic components out there are showing a little wear. There's some power outages at times. We're trying to improve that. And also the LED screens on top. They're not functioning the way we want them to function. So we're trying to improve the functionality of the screen and update it perhaps to higher resolution down the road, and also just the internal electronic circuitry.
So replacing the screens and redo. Got it.
Yeah.
Next, the wide area network, fiber or microwave wireless, is that for the buildings, all the buildings throughout the city, buildings interconnected? What is that?
Going to have to defer to Mr. Stenson if he would like to come out and answer that question. So Mike, if you want to remind.
So I told you I'd get you out of there.
That's good, it's out there. Okay, can you repeat the question again?
So the wide area network, fiber and microwave wireless, is that for the buildings, interconnected buildings? What's the
Yeah, currently our wide area initiative is we're leasing fiber from Comcast. We have also a new initiative for CCTV. A lot of our locations do not have any connectivity. So we're anticipating building out our infrastructure for all our facilities and then installing not only CCTV but also security systems, burglar alarms as such too.
So is that inclusive of like lift stations and the pump houses and?
Correct.
All those assets, okay.
Correct.
All right, the other one, staggered computer replacement, that's self-explanatory.
Sure.
Thank you. I saw it jump out at you.
So this sheet, City Hall Facilities and Maintenance. You may recall during the strategic plan, we had said that staff was working on compiling a list of the City Hall, well, really all the city's largely mechanical assets, HVAC, blowers, things of that nature. And so that is still ongoing. We're getting close to completing that. And then what we're going to do at that point is kind of like the SURF program or even the street programs, do like a worst to first type of listing and start to replace those assets as they need to be replaced. So step one is identify what they are, age, life cycle, and then replacement cost, and start to work down through those things. Also, you're in the narrative, the HVAC system, the fob system, roof, interior lighting, some of them are the nice LEDs that turn off by themselves, some, the old cans that are still on a switch over there. So just looking at all the components of City Hall, and like I said, doing a worst first analysis for what needs to be repaired, fixed, and or modernized. Next one's the police department improvements. You all actually approved this contract, it's either last week or 2 weeks ago at the council meeting. So this project sheet, like I said, is ongoing, and I know the architects and whatnot are moving forward with that for the police departments. Like I said, this was just approved within the last, I forget if it was the last meeting or 2 council meetings ago, but just recently this was approved. Moving forward, kind of tying into what Director Stenson was saying with, connecting some of the city's infrastructure facilities. So this camera system upgrade is the one that ties in, just to be clear, just want to make it clear that this is not a further creep of the Flock system. This is the city's system where we manage and, would look at our own assets. So like Mr. Stenson just said, the lift stations, the well houses, things of that nature, and would all be tied into the camera system that's managed by the PD. And I believe then we try to backfeed it into ACDC for their purview as well. But this is for the city's infrastructure, police department, City Hall, the train station, the Ped Bridge, and then, like I said, the other critical infrastructure facilities that the city owns and manages for, amongst other things, the potable water and the sewerage systems.
Alderman Jacob.
Just a question for the chief. Does ACDC monitor all of our cameras that we have currently in place, or are they able to? Or is that part of the reason for this upgrade?
They're currently monitoring select cameras at the PD, such as booking, the lobby, areas that we really need secured.
So while you're up there. So follow up to that. So all the other cameras, those are not actually being monitored 24 hours. They're just there if we need to look back in time at something that may or may not have happened.
Correct. And we can prioritize which locations need the most security to kind of give them a plan on what we want monitored.
Yeah. Is there a limit to how many they could? I'm sure they have a capacity, right? I mean, they're doing 4 other communities.
Yeah, they're doing a lot more than 4 and fire departments. So we could talk to them and see what they would be comfortable with, how many they could monitor at a time, and then prioritize our locations on what we would expect.
So is there, go ahead. Run the cameras, you know I love them. So is there a function, much like you know, a motion sensor on your light, right, that the camera goes on or it detects something, that it cuts to that? So I'm assuming some of the other ones, we have monitors in the police department, right, that you could pull up.
Yeah, my understanding of the current system is they're monitored 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and the footage drops off depending on how much data is captured. But the current system is outdated, out of warranty, and we're servicing it every couple months. So we would be looking to replace the current system with something high-tech, new, that would function how we need it.
So that was just a follow-up, because that was part of my, as we get into all these cameras and stuff, storage, as it's been brought up, is a big cost. So if those cameras have a motion sensor, but they're not recording, you know, the same well house or pump house or street corner where nothing's happening, right, and they could be activated by motion, although sometimes that would be a tree limb or a shadow, it still would have the ability to reduce the amount of recording and thus reduce the amount of retention and actually expand how much we can record with the same data assets or storage assets.
Yeah, we look at all those options. I'm assuming there's some locations that we would want constantly monitored, not on motion, and we'd like to move away from the server storage to the cloud storage for the entire system.
Thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, so the 140,000 that we're gonna spend, does that include, because it says the current system located at PD, City Hall, RTA Station, and Irving Park Pedestrian Bridge? Will all those be monitored? Is part of that plan to monitor those particular locations at ACDC or no?
So we would like to replace all the existing cameras we have, and then we will need to sit down and prioritize. We ask ACDC how many can you monitor at a time, and kind of prioritize what we want them to monitor. I don't envision that they're going to be able to monitor every single camera that we will want throughout the city.
Did we include something in that $140,000 budget, expecting that we're gonna do some? I mean, maybe not all, we might add 5 cameras to be monitored, or
So
no?
this includes replacing all of the existing cameras we have, and I think it was somewhere between adding 15 to 20 cameras to include all of Public Works and the important facilities.
Okay, thank you.
So is that cost just for the cameras, or does that include the cost to monitor them from ACDC?
That does not include a cost to monitor them. I believe that's currently what they're monitoring is included in our service fees with them. Now, if we wanted to expand the number that they're currently monitoring, we could certainly ask them what they're willing to go to, or if there's going to be an increased price on that.
Alderman Messina?
I think Alderman Ames kind of alluded to it, but like, we're not really adding more cameras, we're just upgrading our hardware, right? The cameras, right? So we shouldn't really anticipate more, because you talked about like having them prioritize which cameras. Is there a fee associated with that?
Well, that's what we'd have to determine, but we are looking to add more cameras.
That as well, right.
Because right now, our Public Works facilities, our pump stations, our lift stations, they are not monitored.
Right. But I guess my question was like more around, you've talked a few times about like, we'll talk to ACDC about prioritizing Wooddale's cameras as opposed to another community's. Like, how does that work? Is it just a...
No, not. we're not gonna ask them to prioritize us over Itasca or Bensonville. It's, if they're currently monitoring, let's say, 8 cameras for Wooddale, are they comfortable, do they have the capacity to monitor more than 8? And if the answer is no, then we need to decide, okay, what are the 8 most important to us for them to monitor?
I guess you're almost answering it. So, so if they can do more than 8, do we have to pay more?
We'll have to ask that question and find out.
Okay.
But we also have, throughout the police station, we have these cameras up on monitors. So we could expand, if we're expanding the camera system, we could add more monitors. So when officers are in the station doing paperwork, they've got this wall of cameras that if something pops up, they're gonna see it.
Okay, thank you.
Moving on, the facade improvement program. This program's been around a number of years. I'm sure you're all pretty familiar with it. As of late, as you can see by the previous year and current year's numbers, not a lot of participation as of late, so I'm not sure what that means aside from the fact that there's not a lot of people participating.
Yeah. It's nice. How do we look into revamping the program? I mean, I'm gonna toot my horn, but when I was on Streetscape, we crushed it. I mean, we had constantly, we were advertising it, we heard from businesses. I just don't know where it's fallen, right? So, no knock on the people that are on Streetscape now, but what's happening?
I would have to defer to somebody on Streetscape or Miss Springer or somebody I.
Besides not
just
meeting,
know
because
the
that's the
numbers.
feedback I get from my residents that are on the board.
Yeah, and I'm the chairman of the committee, and I kind of brought that up, like, we missed so many meetings, and
There you go.
I think Alderman Woods, I think you were kind of having the same problem at the end of your term, that it's not like where there a lot of stuff was coming up. I know we recently brought up the park, like what. Yeah.
Can you guys make this an agenda item and talk about how you revamp this program or advertise it better? Or?
Yeah, and that's something that needs to be brought forward, and we need to talk about it more. But, yeah, I mean, I know the ones that they had told us about, none of those came to fruition for whatever reason. And
I think that's part of it, right? Some of the feedback I've gotten is it's pretty stringent, right? Like, no offense, I know everybody probably pulls permits when they're building restaurants and stuff like that, but maybe just having that criteria of like, they know they're being watched. I don't know. I don't know what it is to fix it, but maybe it's looking at what are the requirements.
Yeah, we kind of talked about that, and even talked about maybe expanding it to not only the main roads, maybe to like the industrial park or other areas that, you know, as long as people are upgrading their buildings, I mean, wherever it is, I mean, and we're not talking residential, we're talking commercial properties. So.
Okay, thank you.
The O'Hare Noise and the Stop CPKC. To be clear, this is just for the committee's work. The grade separation item is further in the document, so this is really only referring to the committee or commission, coalition, I believe is the technical phrase. So you have the commission and the coalition. These are just costs related to those couple of programs based on current year costs and then just historical trends as how those projects are going. Flood property buyout, as I mentioned before, a couple of years ago, we did purchase 3 properties through this program and were reimbursed by the state. The $75,000 was the demolition of those. I believe staff has identified one smaller parcel that if the state and/or FEMA comes up with the funding, we would look to acquire, but it's then where we would not do so unless that funding was guaranteed. Rear drainage program. I know this was mentioned earlier a little bit. You know, the 50-50 cost share up to the 3,000. There's been, you know, roughly 2 participants, maybe 3 in one of the years per year participating in this program.
Alderman Artie-Wood.
Have we talked, or have you guys talked in the past about increasing that amount to entice maybe some more people to participate? I mean, three grand is nothing in terms of what most of those projects cost. That's a working interest.
So yeah, my understanding is that that has not come up, but that doesn't mean it can't come up if you wanted it to come up, but it hasn't, heretofore, it hasn't come up to the best of my knowledge.
Yeah, and so if we're budgeting in the future for what, 4 homes per year at 3 grand cap, I mean, and only 2 are participating now, it seems like either almost just ditch the program entirely or increase what we would pay out to, I mean, I know myself personally, I would love to do it, but I mean, I think that project's 10 to 12 grand alone, 3 grand's a drop in the bucket. Just my opinion, I know it's not your decisions.
Is that a suggestion?
That is, yes.
Mayor?
The 3,000, that's up, I think, what was it, 50%? Was it, do we have a percentage on that one? So if it was a $6,000 project, we only did 50%. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's 50/50 up to 3,000, so, you know,
3,000.
5,000 you get 25, but a $10,000 project, you'd still only get the 3,000.
And I remember the attorney was totally against us doing that when we first started, but we wanted to do something.
Mr. Murray?
I would say previously, for this program and all of our other programs like Facade, if it's become a little stale, why don't we do a little brainstorming and we could bring all these programs back now that we have some experience doing them. We see how many people apply, we see who applies. I think it would be a good idea to bring all these type of programs back on a one-by-one basis to update and modify, because some of them are probably getting a little stale, and maybe we can get more participation.
Alderman Messina?
Might be a question for Director Lang. Do we know are multi-unit buildings able to apply? That's one question.
Yes, multi-unit buildings and associations are actually able to apply for the program. Basically, anybody except a commercial business or industrial.
Still held to the cap of 3,000 though?
Correct. It's $3,000 per project, not necessarily per residence.
Since some of our residents have to wait 25 years, can we think about increasing some of the money? Is this something, I mean, it sounds like we're gonna have maybe a workshop or something, Jeff, to talk about all these programs, but like, can we talk about how we revamp this and maybe increase some of the money, and maybe for a multi-unit building, maybe we increase the amount? We have some of those requests that are coming in, and one of them is gonna wait 20 years.
Yeah, like I said, I think we should take them one by one. I will say that one of the big things that I always hear, both for Facade and this rear yards drainage, is residents or businesses just don't want to put the percentage skin in the game on their end, monetarily wise. So if we want to up our skin in the game, I'm sure we'll get more participants. But that's currently not the policy, so.
Alderman Artie-Wood?
Has 2 homes a year been pretty typical or around that, or what have we seen the past few, I know just from last year, but.
Yeah, 2 to 4.
Okay.
I think this year we're actually planning to have 4, so. There's some, I saw a reimbursement request, I think will be on, if it wasn't just on the past list of bills, it'll be on a future one. And then I think we have one more going through the process of completing the project.
Alderman Jacob?
Just out of curiosity, Director Lang, what is the average cost of these projects that we've been seeing? Are they 10,000, 8,000, 6,000? I mean, what is?
Yeah, obviously it varies depending on the project type. I mean, if you're just connecting your sump line to the storm sewer out front, it can be 2,000. If you're putting in a whole rear yard drainage system with inlets and underground sewer, it could be 10, 15,000. So
Okay.
it varies widely, but a lot of the projects are cost prohibitive when they're in that $10,000, $15,000 range.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. So that was going to be one of my comments, that 3,000 is really, I think the participation rate is low, because the majority of the people, when they find out it costs them 15, 20, and 25,000 at today's prices, 3,000 is a drop in the bucket, and then the project kind of gets scrubbed. But that's my comment. And second was what are we using as the definition of commercial? So if I own a 32 flat, can participate in the program. I would argue that that's a commercial operation, but. Mr. Mertens,
I don't have an answer for that.
is that an attorney question?
I don't think so. I think we'll just go back, look at the policy. I'll talk with Ms. Springer. Maybe we'll talk with the attorney, but definitely.
Let's leave them out.
Well, I mean, if we're going to revise the program, we should probably include him if there's going to be revisions.
And I'm not arguing either way, I'm just questioning when we use that term, that commercial's not allowed, and argue that big apartment building is a commercial operation.
Mayor, please.
So this program was started to help some people out, not to completely keep their backyards dry. Some people want, believe me, I've had these discussions. Yeah, but look at my yard. I go, what? It rained yesterday. It's still wet. Really? Come on. At some point, you have to draw the line. Now, we're spending money on stormwater projects, which was never done before. Maybe we want to go away from stormwater projects and up the rear yard to 10 grand and don't do any more flood projects. I mean, somewhere we got to draw the line. You want to raise it? Go ahead and raise it.
Director Wilson, comment?
I'm good, the moment's passed.
Okay, all right. Alderman Arbois.
Yeah, comment to that, I mean, there's plenty of places in town because of everybody regrading their lots, I'll put it nicely, right? Right. Create situations that sometimes are untenable that, I mean, it's not, if the water's there for 5 minutes or 10 minutes or it's a little wet, where the whole backyard is ponding for a significant amount of time, only because somebody else has taken actions to try to eliminate the water from their property. And that combined with, so those become more expensive things, right? Those are $20,000, $25,000, and that's where we don't get the participation. The guy with the slightly wet yard, the little puddle, he's complaining because they complain, but I'm talking about the ones, and Alderman Catalano can testify that there's some in his ward that do the same thing. So,
Right.
that's why I bring it up, not for.
Alderman Messina.
At Mayor Police's retirement party, I'm going to tell the story. I was waiting for you to show us the video of your backyard, because I've heard your story like 20 times.
Oh, really?
But, so, all kidding aside though.
I don't qualify.
Well, right, and I've heard you tell the story to probably 50 of my residents about your house. And so it's a great story, but we only get 2 people. I mean, it's not, we were planning for like doomsday. We're clearly not getting that much participation. So as we think about revamping it, if we can think about increasing the cost, forget the fact of inflation and all that, like, maybe it is. You're still not fixing the problem, but maybe it is 75-25. I don't know what that is, and hopefully we talk more about it, or we just increase the amount, because yeah, I think we had at least 2 that I know off the top of my head where it was just the difference, to your point, the difference, they had to pay out of pocket, they still couldn't do it, even though they desperately needed to do it, so.
Yeah, what I'll do is I'm going to forward everybody this program and similar programs, and then if everybody can kind of take some notes, get some questions, think of amounts, tweaks, modifications to the programs, and then we'll start cycling those through future committees. That would be the way I would like to go. It seems to be more organized. Obviously, we're not going to solve it tonight.
No.
What do you mean? All right, go on.
Sure. Moving on, Wooddale Commercial Park Planning. This was a new item last year. So we did actually advance a little bit of funding, because before last year's CIP, it was out in the 5th year, and there was really no other funding for that. I believe this was a streetscape item, or I know Streetscape had been asking some questions about this. So we advanced a little bit of money into the next couple of years. Didn't know if that would need to be planning, focus groups, resident groups, surveys, things of that nature. So there was some money there to start planning what we would like to see in the green space over at Wooddale and Commercial.
Alderman Messina.
In the spirit of the committee having something to do, can we move up this timeline? Because this park has been something that's been floating around for a couple of years now, and they exactly told me the same thing, these people, that we're waiting, you guys are supposed to be voting on the money. But if we tell them now that we're gonna be planning for the next 3 years, 2 years, and then maybe we'll do something, like, I know we have no money, go ahead. We're operating in the.
That actually wasn't what I was going to say, believe it or not. So like I said, I had that one email just asking on the relative timeline for Streetscape. And I know the manager has a comment too, but yeah, I mean, if there's tangible things that we can quantify and know about, then we can certainly reevaluate it. Like I said, last year at this time, this was, yeah, we probably want to do something in the next few years, and now it sounds like it might be a little more aggressive. So once we get something more tangible, I think we can certainly reevaluate that.
Yeah, I think Streetscape's actually begun to work on this, if I'm not mistaken, or is about to.
Yeah, we just kind of started, I mean, the mayor brought it up and I brought it up, so we're starting to talk.
So I think obviously these might advance. I think really staff's just waiting for some direction from Streetscape and the council on what it is to do, and these are just numbers that are plugged in there right now. We have no clue what to do, because it's up to you guys.
And just so you know, I never mentioned $1 million in there, so FYI.
Yeah, I was gonna say, if we could move up some of the stuff, because I think at this point, after they have the quick conversation, shake the dust off the old plan, it's time to get an architect to just at least do a rough site plan. It could just be individual pieces, and then maybe some rendering work, which isn't gonna be a ton of money, but we could advance some money, you know, in 24. I think would be go a long way to actually move some of those projects forward.
Mayor,
And I think we're at the point where we're gonna have to spend some money on it. Otherwise, we're gonna have circular conversations and nobody knows what they can visualize them.
Mayor, please.
So Streetscape, if they're working on the project, and honestly, as strategic planning, I was pushing for this because staff has so many projects and they got to take care of things and whatnot, and always on the back burner. But now that Streetscape is talking about it, and if the committee says, hey, we should hire an architect or something, staff is going to bring that to us right away. And then you'll get to vote on it, and you can vote yes, even though it's not in the budget. We've done things that have not been in the budget this year. I understand you're gonna tell me, oh, we're gonna do this budget coming up, all this stuff. If the committee's is looking for something, and it's always come forward to us, and just like Prairie Fest, committee wanted to do something different, it came to you, period. Same thing, Streetscape, you've got something, bring it forward. And then, I don't see a problem with this.
Alderman Artwood?
Yeah, so does the Streetscape have a budget? So we used to have a budget, so all I'm saying is, it's hard to make plans when you don't even have the beginnings of a budget. And the comparative to Prairie Fest is, there was a budget, we expanded the budget, but we're starting with zero.
Yes, I was looking at it yesterday, but I don't remember the exact number, but there is a small budget.
It's a very
5,000, 7,500, something like that for Streetscape now, which is why we put some of this monies in there if they needed to hire an architect or something to that effect. And Alderman Jacobs' point, $1 million was a number that we came up with because we heard 17 different things that could go over there. So we said, okay, this will at least, be a placeholder. So, what goes up, could be 300,000, or the project, with the pirate adventure ship, could be $3 million. I don't know.
Right.
But this was just, again, this probably, as a manager, probably the hardest page to model, because there's really hasn't been any guidance aside from do something.
So to that point, my argument is there's not going to be guidance until we can quantify it and then have somebody put it on a piece of paper so everybody can visualize it and then start to move the ball forward. That's all.
Correct.
Alderman Jacob.
No, no comment.
Okay.
So that is the end of the non-transportation section.
Alderman Arthur.
Before we leave the streetscape and all that fancy stuff, the gambling money revenue, we were going to talk about moving that back to facade program or to streetscape or...
Actually, it's gonna bring up future item.
Future item?
But it's not on there, but I was gonna, I have it right here, I already told him, I'm bringing it up.
Well, move it to page 4, I just wrote it.
But it's not, that's gonna be a budget thing, but we can,
Okay.
if we want to move it sooner, and I told him I'd want to move it sooner.
Well, I want to have the conversation, so
Right.
now we're having the conversation. It's in the atmosphere.
Mr. Marmot.
Yeah, the mayor had called me earlier today and talking about CIP. And I believe that we were just going to wait, because this has come up umpteen times. Staff's not doing anything until we get some sort of motion to discuss it at committee. And when we get a motion to discuss it at committee, we'll bring it to committee. To date, nobody has made the motion to bring it to
I'll make the
committee.
motion. Can we make a motion here, or this is not the right format?
I don't,
Well, request it as a future item. So you're
I'll make a
requesting.
motion to request it as a future.
Okay.
But I'll make the suggestion. Whatever I need to do, that's what I'm doing.
It's done?
Okay?
no, it's a vote, we need to vote.
Oh, we'll wait.
We get a
for
second.
Future items, yeah, okay.
Why do we need a vote? It's discussed as it's a future, it's just a future item.
Yeah. You got 2 already, so that's what I need.
Are you good?
It works for me.
All right, I just want
I can cross it off my list here.
to, just trying to do my part.
Alderman Jacob.
Well, as the chairman of Streetscape, can we put 50,000 instead of 20 into 2025? Because whatever we decide on our plans, we are going to need to have an architect eventually, so.
Is that something?
Yeah, that could be done here. Right?
Yeah, we just need consent, need concurrence.
Hey, does anyone have any issue or concern with that? Increasing that to 50,000? Not? All in favor?
Since it's monetary, don't we have to do a roll call?
This is the draft.
It's the draft.
Okay, no one's opposed to that, so you could make a note.
Right, you're going to correct the sheet.
Right, and it'll be in the budget.
Okay. Perfect. All right, so that is the non-transportation section. Moving into water and sewer, similar format, list of the projects. The first one is the water distribution master plan. Again, the numbers are nice, but really it's the project sheet here. Like I said, the one that's really quantified is Addison Road 1. And as we mentioned at the beginning of the night, there was the potential of some federal funding for that to help out with that cost. But exclusive of that, that is the engineer's estimate of probable cost at this current time. And then here are some future projects that staff has identified that we may want to address. Again, those are all subject to change based upon, break history and other factors, road resurfacing, et cetera. But for right now, that's kind of where those potential future projects lie.
Alderman Hartwood.
This is a question for Alan. So if we do this, they're related, unrelated, but as we do the Addison Road loop project, we're going to take care of the trouble residents that are on Addison Road with the water tie.
And Addison, every property that does not already have a B-box will be given a service line with a B-box and the opportunity to connect to that.
Thank you.
Moving on, which may or may not be germane to the question that was just asked, we have the infrastructure tap-on program. Again, these are for houses that were either incorporated, incorporating and tapping on, or are incorporated and we're either on a well or septic system that we're looking to tap on to the city's infrastructure. Again, we're, in the narrative there, we're getting about 2 to 3 participants annually. Right now, looks like we're around 130, so, we're getting close. And we're budgeting for 4 per year. I don't know if this is a similar thing to the rear yard drainage thing, but also we've heard from some people it's the cost. And then other people, once they realize that they'll have to pay the city every month for water and sewer that they're getting for free right now, they decide to back off of that as well. So there's probably a couple of factors on that one. So.
Whatever happened to the forced annexation we talked about 10 years ago, 8 years ago? We're going to force people to tap to.
So we did the entire annexation all the way around the city. We said we're gonna start with voluntary, and we've been getting volunteers every 2 to 3 per year. Some people have been annexed in because they were bought out, right? And that's happened. That group, we couldn't even force annex them in because they were over 60 acres. They're no longer over 60 acres. But we never talked about forcing and it did come up that if people stop, if you want to start forcing, well, where are you going to force? You're not going to do just one group of homes and leave the other group of homes. You're going to do everybody all at once, and that becomes costly. I mean, there's people in an unincorporated area behind the Park District that want to come in. I go, well, if you can get the other 10 neighbors ahead of you, maybe we can run the water line to everybody at once, but until then, there's no way we're getting to you. It's, you're 10 houses in. So.
Does anybody still have that map? We had actual designated maps that we were talking about.
I'll show it to you, I have it.
Yeah, I mean, some of these areas are just silly. I think about if we ever wanted to cross over 83, I just think about my ward, Deer Path. We have 6 houses that are on they should be tapped in, and then developing anything across the street, we lost the development because for that exact reason, it was too much money to connect to the water.
One of the houses on Deer Path did annex in,
One did,
but they're not on, because we weren't close enough. I don't know if they did get the water, but not the sewer, or neither. But I think they got the water, but not the sewer, because we weren't close.
I'm not saying that we actually need to do anything, but if somebody has it and can share it, it'd be nice to maybe look at it again. It's been maybe 8 years. If we have no appetite to even look at it, that's fine, but.
I'm sure staff has it, but I've got the whole list.
I'll just share it with me, I guess.
Moving on, so the water facilities and equipment upgrade. Really the big ticket item here in this fiscal year, which may or may not wind up in this fiscal year. Next fiscal year is the replacement of the water tower on Irving Park. So water tower 1 replacement last year. And then again, there's some other projected projects out into some of the future years for this particular sheet. Moving on, the inflow and infiltration, the I&I program, I think we're all very familiar with. I believe the next 2 years are still a slightly elevated cost versus what we were anticipating to finish off the area that they're in right now, which I believe is the rest of Ward 4. And then after that, Mr. Gorelli and his team will move on to the next area once they finish off Ward 4. Plant and lift station maintenance. Kind of the idea here is to do a lift station, then take a couple of years off, do another lift station, and then again, you'll see in 2034, has been discussed a couple times, at the South Treatment Plant. A couple of years before that, as was discussed at the South Treatment Plant workshop, is doing that flow monitoring study. The decision was made, it wouldn't make much sense to do it now if we're not going to do anything with the plant for 10 years, so we're going to push that off until it makes more sense to do the monitoring to get a better idea of the flows closer to the time that we're going to be doing the actual project. And then also the lift station modernization design in here, those two are intentionally blank. As Mr. Grilling and his team have identified ash as needing to be replaced, but then in the 28-29 timeframe, they'll see which one needs to be done next. There was one that was programmed to be next, but there was an emergency repair that had to be done that effectively fixed it and took it off the board. So we know we have to do one. They just need to identify which one that is.
Mayor, please.
I don't recall, how many lift stations do we have again in town?
Like 13.
I was gonna say 12, I thought, but okay, 13.
We do powder now. We consider that storm.
Microphone.
I believe at last count, we had 12 sanitary and 2 storm. That sounds right.
Yeah, that's what, I was gonna say 12, just a refreshment. Sorry.
Alderman Jacob.
Going just back to the water facilities and equipment upgrades, with the new water tower, that's $5,215,000. I know the mayor was never really in favor of a new water tower, but maybe we could push this back a year and fix the flooding in Ward 1 in 1 year. Fix it this year.
Mayor, please.
So this isn't a replacement of the same, this is a much larger tower than we have now, right? What is it? Is this 750,000?
750,000 gallons.
Versus the, what do we got,
100,000.
Yeah. Right.
Alderman Jacob.
I guess all I'm asking is this really something we have to do this year, or could we fix some flooding issues and push this back 1 year? I mean, we've been waiting for this water tower for, I don't know, we've been talking about this thing for probably 20 years, and now all of a sudden we're doing it this year.
Director Wilson.
Yes, this is actually being paid for out of TIF funds, which would not be applicable for the stormwater project. So pushing this back based on the funding source wouldn't have any impact whatsoever on that particular project, unfortunately.
Do we use TIF funds for this, for the water tower?
We can, yes. I have the legal opinion from the attorney already, so.
Makes sense. It's an idea.
We have the 2 unfunded projects. You'll see listed here the decorative streetlights, which Director Lang referenced those prairie style lights, and then the potential investigation design for the intersection, grade separation, or whatever that might be, whatever that investigation would lead to. Again, the decorative streetlights, those prairie style lights, there were 3 phases identified in that. To be fair, you know, you don't have to do the entire sheet at once, but again, right now, it doesn't look like any one of these 3 phases is viable. And then again, the CPKC merger intersection mitigation, again, I think this is probably largely predicated on some grant funding or some federal funds to help get this off the ground at this current time.
Alderman Arcwood.
That's, I was gonna ask if there was funding, so you already, that's what we're looking for, right? But that, there isn't any presently, but that's our goal is to get some funding from them.
Mr. Murphy.
I think the direction from the council at the workshop was wait and see approach, monitor, and also see if there's funding at the same time, which we're doing.
So wasn't, correct me if I'm wrong, so wasn't there some, in this agreement, isn't there some language for them to expend some funds to help the communities that are impacted? I.e. whether that's signaling or redoing the computers?
Yeah, correct. I'm actually gonna, we just had a phone call today about that, actually, the coalition. There's money that's going to be used for advanced notification systems, things like that, but there's no money for actual hard construction costs. It's just more IT related per se. Syncing with dispatch centers, things like that.
So I'm assuming they're doing some kind of study, right? So is that information available so that we could use that to try to monetize some of the things that we would need to do based on the impact to us?
Yeah, I think that's actually the plan right now. There's data gathering. That's one of the components. One of the things there's monies for data gathering to see how long the trains are impacting the intersection, how fast they go through, when they come, and that'll give us, obviously, data we need to see if actually we do need to do something. And if the data says that they're not complying with what they said they were going to comply with, then that's where we could actually come into some money down the road for mitigation for construction potentially. So for the next 7 years, we're actually monitoring the intersection with money from the CPKC, but also the coalition is talking about, actually tomorrow I might put some information in the manager's report. There might be some state funding creating some sort of, I forgot the word. It escapes me now, but there's some sort of state funding that would fund our own monitoring for the coalition that we would be in control of, whereas right now we have to go with whatever company CPKC wants to monitor, and we have to rely on them. Whereas if we can get some funding that we're in charge of some of this stuff, that would be more ideal. So there's forthcoming information. It's kind of wait and see right now, monitor, and that mandated monitoring period is for 7 years.
Follow-up? Follow-up. So that was going to be my question. You just answered it, that it is out there. So it is a 7-year period. So this is going to be like the O'Hara modernization program where we sit and monitor and hope that they don't keep moving the goal line and that we can make some headway.
Yeah, now I remember. It's called like a transit authority. Like this, the Illinois state government's going to look at some sort of coalition transit authority for the communities that are impacted. Budget money for the 7 years, like let's say they're talking about $1 million per year that the communities can help use for this monitoring.
Thank you.
Mayor, please.
Yeah, regarding CPKC, so they have 7 years that they're going to be monitored, their grace period. Problem is, so the time has already started, but of course, with the construction going on, with all the highways and everything, and through Bensonville, if you've driven down Green Street, all the construction and stuff. So they're really not, they're slow playing it, and by the time they get all that done and get, let's face it, they're gonna play games. And
What I just said, people are aware.
and basically, they're gonna slow play it, because by the time they get done, a couple more years, will be 3 years into it. They might only do half the trains, because freight, my understanding is freight here in the US has slowed down for some reason. I don't believe it personally, but so they're gonna slow play it, and then after the 7 years, you'll get the full blast, and oh, by the way, it's too late. We do have the congressman working on getting us money for this thing, but of course, he's made no promises. And honestly, we're still waiting for the money for Addison Road, which we've been told we're getting, but until we get, you know, we got the call, but just hold off a little bit because we need to make sure. So, again, if we get the money, then we'll do this thing.
Alderman Jacob?
Jeff, I was going to ask you as far as, like, I know grant money and stuff, like Alan's looked for grant money and gotten us money. The chief, I believe, has gotten us money for things. Didn't we at one time have like one employee that was kind of focused on that years ago, and maybe that person got promoted or is no longer with us?
Searching for grants?
Yeah, searching for grants. Or is it just the department heads that do that?
We did have a person that temporarily did that for less than a fiscal year. He was not working out, and we ended up getting more money with department heads doing it in conjunction with our engineering partners, our lobbyist. Our lobbyist is actually one of our biggest grant searchers, so we've actually gotten, I think it was 2 years ago, I said it was the year of the grant. That was the year we got the most grants ever. So we did have that at one time for about half a fiscal year.
Okay, I remember we did. I didn't know if we still have an employee that does that. I know, again, the chief and Alan have done things, but thank you.
Okay. That is the end of the presentation. I'd like to make a motion to accept the fiscal year 2025 CIP as amended. I know there was a couple items that you wanted updated. Do you need a roll call? All in favor?
For clarity, you're going to correct this, make those changes and get that back to us?
Director Wilson?
Yeah, historically what we've done is we've just presented it in the operating budget, and we just put a sheet in there just iterating what the changes were from this meeting to the representation in the operating budget. So.
Can we create a sheet and send it out? Because I know that we, not a lot of major things, but a few little things, like you're adjusting the 3,000 and the 4,000 here and there. Some of the cleanup stuff and.
Sure, we can
Just so
generate that in.
we can follow along and go. Thank you.
Okay, so I believe we did have everyone say aye. Was anyone opposed? Okay, passes. Items to be considered at future meetings, fiscal year 25 budget on February 22nd. Or any other items there?
Video gaming money.
Okay, so that's added. I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned.